Hi guys, it's me, ChazzaHD, welcome to race day at Spa Francorchamps for the 10th Grand Prix of the 2026 Formula 1 season. Of course, the Belgian Grand Prix of 2026. And we have, I think, a very good race on our hands today, especially after what happened in qualifying yesterday. The grid in the top five, I think, is really has set us up not perfectly, but very nicely for what should be a close and very competitive fight for the win between possibly five different drivers. But we have an amazing front row of Kimi Antonelli and Max Verstappen. That is exactly the front row that we all want. You know, the two best drivers in Formula One, not necessarily in that order, but the two best drivers right now, and that's what we want to see, the absolute best going toe to toe. But given that Ferrari have won two of the last three races, and Ferrari fourth and fifth on the grid, they were actually, in terms of where they ended up in qualifying, it was about where I expected, but on pure pace, they weren't as bad as I thought they would be. So Ferrari definitely are a factor today from fourth and fifth on the grid. And this is going to be, I think, a good one. We've had some Belgian Grand Prix in the past few years that have not quite delivered, mainly because they've been dominated by one team or one driver. But I think this is going to be a good one. And fingers crossed, we'll get an electrifying start, which will really shock this race into action. But yeah, as you can see, the race gets underway in just under 2 hours from now. And hello to all of you joining me today for the race watch along. If you joined me yesterday for qualifying, good to see you again. If this is the first time joining me this weekend, hello to you and welcome along for this race watch along. And yeah, cannot wait for the Grand Prix today. As usual, we'll go through the typical build-up. We'll look at the results of qualifying yesterday. We'll go through the sector time data just to understand why certain teams are, in the positions they're in and why certain teams are quicker than others. I'll obviously give my predictions for the race. We'll go through strategy as well in terms of what Pirelli, the tyre supplier, obviously for Formula One, has said is the best strategy today and what possible strategy options there are for certain teams. And generally, a preview for all of the teams as to where they should be in the race today. And then ultimately, when we get to the, from an hour and 56 minutes from now, we'll be getting into the race itself. But yeah, hello to all you guys. Good to see you all. And yeah, good, I hope that you guys obviously are having a good summer, and hopefully, no matter whatever circumstances you may be going through, you're able to join me today in enjoying and hopefully watching along the race in Spa. One thing I did want to say though is, unfortunately, I will just be solo today. Normally, I'm joined by Niblo, my co-commentator, usually for the races, but yeah, he's unable to join me today. So a shame, but yeah, he's just not able to at the minute. He's just a bit too busy to be able to hop on, which is no problem. And we'll have him on again soon, pretty soon. Definitely before the end of the European season, I'd imagine. So yeah, he will definitely be back on stream. But yeah, it'll just be solo for me today. And I will try to guide you as best through the Belgian Grand Prix of 2026. And before I go any further and we get into the qualifying results, of course, there is a poll running in the chat, and I want you guys, between now and about 5 minutes before the race starts, I want you guys to let me know in that poll, who do you think will win the Belgian Grand Prix today? Will it be pole position man, Kimi Antonelli? Will it be the man alongside him on the front row, Max Verstappen? Will it be... let me just actually check if he's actually in the pole. Yeah. Will it be third place man and the other Mercedes driver, George Russell? And the fourth option, you have, I think, the wild card, really, for this race today. Will it be Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton? Or will it be Charles Leclerc taking his second win here at Spa and his second win in a row in 2026? Of course, Leclerc is not in the poll, so if you do think Leclerc will win the race, or anyone other than those four options in the poll, make sure to post that prediction in the chat, and I'll make sure to read it out. But those are the four options in the poll. Antonelli, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton. So out of those four, who do you think wins the race today? I think those are the four most likely options for the victory today. So, yeah, we'll see ultimately what goes down and who ends up with the win. I think still very likely it'll be one of the drivers on the front row. I think, it's going to take quite a magnificent pace and magnificent performance, honestly, for Russell or the Ferrari team to end up winning, but it's definitely not impossible. Absolutely no way is it impossible. But let's get into what happened in qualifying yesterday and just how our grid is made up for today's race. So we'll start with the results of qualifying. Kimi Antonelli on pole position for the Belgian Grand Prix, a 1:44.361. A stunning lap. Yes, Mercedes have got the fastest car in qualifying trim at this track. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But for him to be 3/10 quicker than the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who himself set a really great lap. What was it, 1:44.6 that Max did, I thought was, at the time, and I still do, I thought it was brilliant. But then Antonelli went and absolutely obliterated it with a 1:44.3. That's about half a second quicker than I expected pole position to be. So, yeah, Antonelli was just on a really special level yesterday. Verstappen, though, like I said, still did a great lap, second place, and Max, I do think, is in the fight to win today. Mainly because Mercedes are not as quick normally in the races as they are in qualifying. So, yeah, I think Max is definitely in the fight to win. Whether he will win, that's a completely different story, but I think he can absolutely win the race today. Lando Norris third. Norris did a great job. He's had a great weekend. A shame he's got the 10th-place penalty. 4.5 tenths off pole. A very good lap, but ultimately third was the best he could do. The two ahead of him, I mean, Max, I think, just put in a better lap, and Max, obviously, we know is a faster and better driver. And then Antonelli, not only was his lap better, but also the Mercedes car is faster than the McLaren. We just know that to be fact. And then you got George Russell in fourth place, half a second down. Now, there is a story with Russell that we've seen or heard about in the last couple races or so, where Russell has been losing time in a straight line compared to his teammate. And yesterday, it was reportedly 0.4 of a second he was losing down the straights to Antonelli. And I actually found an article on the BBC Sport Formula One page that went into it. And according to Mercedes, Russell saying, quote, he loses anywhere from 2 to 6 tenths in the straight. So, it's not, that gap of half a second is not entirely just straight line speed. It's also because Antonelli, I think, is quicker. But Mercedes, they have recognized that the issue was that Russell was left less comfortable with the car in medium and high-speed corners in the middle sector, which of course is very important for the lap. Therefore, the team says that meant he was making corrections to the steering that Antonelli did not have to do. That obviously costs speed, and that which needed to be filled in with battery power. And as electrical energy is limited, that left Russell down on deployment in the final third and the final sector of the lap. So, and even though Mercedes have admitted later on in this article that they are seeing a straight line discrepancy they can't explain, it's not entirely because there is an issue with Russell's car. Part of it is because of the way he's driving. Because as we saw, especially at the start of the season, and this is what it is the annoying thing really with these cars, is around certain tracks, if you... How do I describe what I'm trying to say? Pushing as hard as possible and driving to the absolute limit of what you can possibly do. With these cars, around certain tracks, it's not necessarily the quickest way. Because if you do that, and then you have those corrections and little moments that, the Mercedes just talked about, you end up wasting more electrical power. So if you drive in a way that's more smooth and gets the more out of the battery, you're going to get more out of the battery, therefore probably more lap time. It sucks. It should not be this way. This is something that will improve over time. Next year, the electrical contribution of the power unit will go down, and it will the year after. And then the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has said that in 2031 we're going to go to V8s, which I'm very happy about. So it will get better over time, but that's what I think, not all of the issue is, but I think part of it, at maybe even half of the issue for Russell, is that he is not driving... he might be driving quick enough, but he's not driving efficiently enough to get the best out of the battery. Again, it should not be that way. That is just, a terrible thing to hear. But with these cars, that is unfortunately right now in 2026 the reality of getting the best out of your machine. So it's not entirely Mercedes' fault. And even if this discrepancy in straight line speed wasn't there and he was a lot closer without that problem, that's not to say Antonelli would still be beating him. So, it's not like Russell would be winning all the races and getting pole position every week. I still think Antonelli is performing better and is quicker. But, half a second, that's what the gap is. He's third on the grid, Russell, but very much under threat from the two Ferraris behind. Russell, though, actually lucky in a way that he is third on the grid, because Charles Leclerc, fourth on the grid, fifth in qualifying, he should have qualified ahead of Russell and should have actually qualified third, even ahead of Lando Norris. But when he exited the bus stop chicane on his final lap, there was a yellow flag waving at the entrance to the pit lane because Isaac Hadjar went very slowly and I think stopped like midway through the pit lane. And therefore a yellow flag started waving. But because, Leclerc saw this as he was going through the bus stop chicane, and he thought it was for something that was on track at the final corner. So he backed off. Not by much, but it was by enough for him to be 5th rather than 3rd. So Leclerc should be 3rd on the grid if it wasn't for that, lift off, let's say, out of the bus stop chicane. Which is just proof, I think, that Ferrari have definitely got the pace to finish on the podium. And as you'll see with my prediction soon enough, I think they will finish on the podium. But it is still going to be a very close fight because Mercedes, we do know, still have a very quick car and their car is still better suited to this type of track. But Ferrari have definitely got good pace. Lewis Hamilton will be 5th on the grid, ended up only 2 thousandths behind Leclerc, but of course Leclerc lifted off, like I said. So Leclerc could have gone, at least a 10th or so quicker. Hamilton, it doesn't feel to me like Hamilton's regressed in these last couple races, now that Leclerc is out qualifying him. It feels more like Leclerc is now performing to the level that he should be, rather than Hamilton getting worse. So in terms of what's happening with the Ferrari drivers, I think that is what is happening rather than Hamilton getting worse there. Oscar Piastri, P7. He loves that position. He's qualified 7th in, I think, like 5 of the last 7 qualifying sessions. So, yeah, 7th for Piastri. He will start, though, on the 3rd row in 6th place because of Lando Norris's penalty. So, I mean, McLaren have proved this weekend they've got good pace. And maybe even podium level pace. Is just up to Piastri to actually perform and deliver in the race itself, which we know he can do, but can he, have enough pace to at least keep up and stay in the battle early on rather than fall away? We'll have to see. Arvid Lindblad, 8th in qualifying, and he will start 7th. I'm pretty sure that's his best qualifying result, or one of the best qualifying results of his career. And obviously this is his debut season. And what I think is so great about Lindblad's result is look how close he is to pole position, and look how close he is to Ferrari and the McLaren of Piastri ahead. Or even compared to Russell, he's only 3/10 behind Russell. Quarter of a second behind the Ferrari cars. An absolutely brilliant effort. And Racing Bulls, once again, you must say, have got a very, very good car. And they, I think, pretty clearly are going to dominate the midfield battle today. Gabriel Bortoleto, 9th. Brilliant job by him to get into the top 10. He will start 8th because of Hadjar not doing a lap time. Hadjar also has a grid penalty. I'll get into where he's going to be starting from soon enough. And then it will be Liam Lawson, who qualified 11th. He will start 9th. And then Pierre Gasly will be 10th. And then it will be Colapinto, 11th. Hulkenberg in P12. Lando Norris will be 13th on the grid. His penalty, a 10-place penalty, with the changes that were made. And then after Norris, we don't quite know exactly what the rest of the grid looks like, because, unfortunately, Carlos Sainz has taken a late grid penalty because Williams found an issue with the Mercedes battery in, obviously, the Mercedes engine that Williams use. So I don't know exactly what position Carlos Sainz is starting from. He was supposed to start 14th. But I think now he's going to be starting, probably 20th or 21st or 22nd. Again, I'm not quite sure. So yeah, it was supposed to be Sainz 14th. So I think what it will be is Behrman 14th, Albon 15th, Ocon 16th, 17th and 18th will be the two Cadillacs of Bottas and Perez, and then it should be Stroll 19th. And then, like I said, Sainz will either be 20th, 21st, or 22nd. Hadjar is 21st currently, and then Alonso 22nd, but they haven't, on the Formula One website, they haven't yet adjusted Carlos Sainz's grid position, so I don't actually know where he's starting. I think it says here, Alonso and Hadjar required to start from the back of the grid for multiple additional power unit elements being changed. So I think Sainz is probably going to start 20th. Because Sainz has only got a 10-place penalty. And so has Lance Stroll, by the way. So, yeah. It should be Sainz and Stroll on the penultimate row of the grid, and then Hadjar and Alonso 21st and 22nd. But I'll let you guys know exactly when I know in terms of what the exact grid makeup is. But in terms of the top 10, it's going to be Antonelli on pole, and then Verstappen 2nd, Russell 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Hamilton 5th, Piastri 6th, Lindblad 7th, Bortoleto 8th, Lawson 9th, and Gasly 10th. That's your top 10 starting grid. But in terms of why qualifying ended up the way it did, let's get into the sector time data. First sector, of course, is all about power. Same with the final sector. Racing Bulls, as we know, especially with that Red Bull powertrain engine, which is so strong, Red Bull, are very strong in this area. Saying that, Max Verstappen, as you can see, 0.3 of a second slower than the Racing Bull of Arvid Lindblad in the first sector. So that makes me think that Red Bull might have put a bit more wing on their car, because there's no reason for them to be 0.3 slower than their sister team who have the exact same power unit. There is no reason. So I think that's what's going on there. Maybe to look after the tyres, and maybe they've got a bit more of a race setup in that regard. But yeah, Racing Bull's quickest, only just had a Mercedes. Ferrari, only just over 0.5 off. Maybe Ferrari trimmed the wings out a bit. And they got McLaren, Alpine, Red Bull, Audi looking a bit better. That might be why they improved from practice, because they went for a bit of a better setup. And then you got Williams, Cadillac, slightly quicker than Haas in the first sector, which I think proves two things. One, the Cadillac still doesn't have a lot of downforce, therefore, it's not as draggy, probably as other cars, because of that lack of downforce. But the Haas, we know, is, it's just not a quick car whatsoever in a straight line. So that's, I think, what explains Cadillac ending up ahead of Haas there, only by a couple thousandths of a second. And then Aston Martin, 1.1 seconds off the pace in just the first sector. If you thought that was bad, just wait into the middle sector. In the middle sector, though, in regards to the front-running teams, it's very close. If you remember from practice, when I did the build-up yesterday to qualifying, I looked at the middle sector times from practice too. You had Red Bull and even Ferrari were over 0.5 second off the pace in the first sector, or the middle sector. But in qualifying, it closed up massively, and it was only 0.1 of a second, or actually just under 0.1 of a second, separating the front four teams in the middle sector. So nothing really to separate the four teams. Ferrari, I think, probably just weren't maybe pushing as hard on Friday. Red Bull, though, I'm pretty confident at this point they have put more wing on their car than others. That's why they weren't so quick in the first sector, as they should be, and much quicker in the middle sector. Because in the middle sector in practice too, they were nearly 0.5 second off the pace of Mercedes and McLaren. So, yeah, Red Bull definitely have got a bit more downforce and wing on than maybe you could say normal. And then a massive gap to Audi and Racing Bulls, pretty much lapping at the same pace, half a second off the pace for those two teams. And then another massive gap of 7/10 of a second between Audi, Racing Bulls, going back to Alpine. The field spread just in the middle sector is enormous. Alpine 1.2 seconds off the pace in the middle sector. Only a tenth quicker than Haas, tenth quicker than Haas than Williams. Cadillac 2 seconds off the pace. That is not that bad, to be honest. They're still lacking fundamentally. I'd say probably 7 to 8 tenths of a second of downforce in terms of lap time to really compete with teams like Williams and Haas. So, yeah, Cadillac's still not quite there yet. And then we have Aston Martin, 3.1 seconds slower than Red Bull. And that is not down to the power unit. That is mostly just the horrible chassis, aero package, whatever you want to call it. Absolute shitbox, deathmobile. Yeah, it is just a disaster of a car. And by the way, it was confirmed yesterday. Fernando Alonso did a 150.0 in qualifying. That is 5.6 seconds slower than what ended up being pole position. Pedro de la Rosa was closer to pole position in 2012 in the HRT than Aston Martin were. Aston Martin are officially worse than the HRT team. And HRT, remember, had nothing. No money, absolutely fuck all. Just let that sit with you just a second. You know, in terms of the lack of pace. Also, another stat, and I know there's been circuit changes, since this particular year to the Spa circuit, but there's not been that many changes to the Spa circuit really in the last, 40 years. It's the only, is the bus stop chicane and La Source, really? Everything else is basically the same. And I would say the track is probably, I would say, in terms of the track changes, if we look at the Spa Francorchamps layout now compared to, say, 1991, it's probably slower, the Spa circuit now. If you put a 1991 car on the Spa Francorchamps circuit today, they would probably go slower than they did in 91, because the bus stop chicane back in the day, back then, was quicker. And La Source, I think, was also quicker to get through than it is today. Why am I making this point, you ask? Well, it's because not only did Fernando Alonso do a 150.0, Ayrton Senna took pole position for the Belgian Grand Prix in 1991 on a track layout that was only slightly quicker than the track layout we use today. Do you want to know the lap time that Ayrton Senna did in a 1991 McLaren? Remember, this is a McLaren car that did not have an automatic the paddle shifts that Williams and I think Ferrari had at the time. They were still using a gear stick. That's how long ago this was. Do you want to guess what the lap time was that Senna did? Well, again, remember Alonso, a 150.0. Senna, on a slightly quicker layout, a 147.8. The Aston Martin is 2.2 seconds slower than a car over 30 years old. Again, just let that sit with you just a second. Just the incredible lack of pace that Aston Martin car has. But yeah, I just want to let that sit with you guys a second, because I saw these stats and I was amazed, honestly, at that. And I know people may say, oh, but the Spa track then was completely different. It wasn't completely different. The only difference between the Spa track in 1991 to now is the bus stop chicane and La Source. And it was only slightly shorter in terms of lap time. So it wasn't a massive difference. We're talking maybe half a second quicker, that old layout. So literally, they are slower than cars that are 35 years old. Funnily enough, Ayrton Senna, if he, had time traveled and done that McLaren, or done that pole position lap today, he probably would have ended up being 18th on the grid, even ahead of the Cadillacs. But the thing is, with Cadillac, you can excuse it because they're a new team, completely new, still learning how to do it, how to do this. Aston Martin, massive wind tunnel, massive team base, millions, if not billions, poured in. Adrian Newey designing the car, Fernando Alonso driving the car. And they're still 2 seconds slower than cars nearly 40 years old. Yeah, I just don't know what to say at this point. Like I said yesterday, I will be making a video on Aston Martin's 2026, and I'll make sure to really examine just how bad it's been this season. Sector 3, not massively important. Again, it's all about straight line speed. In the final sector, Mercedes and Red Bull, not much difference between them, but Mercedes a tenth quicker. Racing Bull still quick. Ferrari nearly 3/10 off. Same with McLaren. And then you got Alpine, Audi, Williams, Haas, and then Cadillac 8/10 off the pace. And then Aston Martin 1.3, almost 1.4 seconds off the pace in just the final sector alone. So really, in terms of why the Mercedes car is the quickest car, maybe this weekend to this point, it is the engine which is giving them that advantage, because as you saw in the middle sector, it's very close. In fact, the Red Bull was slightly quicker. But in the first sector and the final sector, that's where Mercedes are making the difference, and it is the engine side. Antonelli himself is still, driving at a very high level. We can't deny that. But the engine advantage that Mercedes have got is clear to see. So they do have, in qualifying trim, the fastest car. I don't think it will be, the gap 3/10. I don't think it's going to be that sort of gap per lap between the Mercedes and the Red Bull in the race. I think it'll be quite a bit closer, because Mercedes, as I've said, they don't tend to be as quick in the races as they are in qualifying. But from qualifying, you'd have to say Mercedes had the best car. Second best car, probably the McLaren. And then the Red Bull, I'd say third. Ferrari fourth still, but closer to the teams ahead than it was looking, let's say, coming out of practice. Racing Bulls quite comfortably the quickest midfield teams. The sixth quickest team, you'd have to probably say Audi ahead of Alpine, and then probably Williams ahead of Haas, And then obviously Cadillac 10th and Aston Martin 11th. Aston Martin, by the way, they are, over 5 seconds a lap off the pace. They're going to be a lap down very quickly. I mean, to go a lap down here, you need to be, like a minute and 40, not a minute and 40, a minute and 50 seconds behind the leader. It's not going to take, I think, super long for them to end up a lap down. I think probably by half race distance, maybe just after half race distance, they'll end up a lap down. It's actually pretty hard in today's F1 to get lapped at Spa because of, one, how long the track is, but the cars generally are a lot closer to the front than they used to be, back 30 odd years ago when you would have cars in 18th and 19th who were like 4 seconds a lap off the pace. So yeah, Aston Martin are going to end up a lap down, and to be honest, with how slow they are, they're going to end up probably at least a minute behind even Cadillac. Never mind, a lap down on the front runners. But that's the pecking order coming out of the qualifying and going into the race. But what is my prediction for the race? Well, let's get into it, and I'll explain why I've gone for the prediction I have. So Max Verstappen, I'm going for him to get his first win of the season. And the reason I think he'll win is because I think he will get into the lead at the start, not at turn 1. I know the Red Bull has had some poor starts lately, but I think Verstappen will get a okay start into turn 1, and then he'll get right in the slipstream of Antonelli, and then he will just about overtake him into Leclerc coming off the Camel Straight. He'll get into the lead, and then what he's gonna do after that is very similar to what he did in the sprint race, actually, at this track last year, where he did the same thing. He got a decent start, then went past the McLarens down the Camel Straight, got into the lead, and then just held them off until the checkered flag. That's what I think happens today. The start is absolutely crucial if Max Verstappen wants to win the race today. He needs to at least hold position if he wants to win today. If he has a poor start like Red Bull have been having, then he's finished today. But we'll have to see just how that start goes. But I think he gets off the line, again, an okay start, and then I think he overtakes Antonelli down the Camel Straight into Leclerc, and then gets into the lead, and I think he does hold on and wins the Belgian Grand Prix. Antonelli, though, will be very close behind. It will be a second, maybe even closer behind by the end of the race. And then I'm going Leclerc 4th, Hamilton 5th, George Russell in... what did I say? Leclerc 4th? No, Leclerc 3rd, Hamilton 4th. George Russell, I think, will be 5th, right behind Hamilton. It's going to be a very close battle between the two Ferraris and the Mercedes of Russell for that podium slot. And to a degree, Piastri as well, who I think will finish in 6th, about 10 seconds off the win. Lando Norris will finish in 7th, a few seconds behind Piastri, and then another few seconds behind will be Isaac Hadjar coming from the back of the field to finish in 8th. Arvid Lindblad will finish about half a minute off the win in 9th, and Gabriel Bortoleto, because of how well he's driving, I think he will finish in 10th place. Just about holding off Lawson and Gasly and Colapinto and drivers like that. But I'm going for it. I think Max Verstappen wins today, as long as he doesn't get a terrible start. If he gets, again, just an okay start, keeps position into turn 1 and out of turn 1, then I think he is in business. But guys, we have got just about, I think, an hour and 20 minutes to go until the race is underway. So get your comments in the chat. What do you think is going to happen today? Who do you think is going to win the Belgian Grand Prix? Can Max Verstappen win? Is Antonelli just too quick today in that Mercedes? What can Ferrari do? What can McLaren do? Let me know in the live chat. But before I go any further, and I will get the timer back on screen in a moment, guys, don't worry. Make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel for more content like this, because we do watch-alongs consistently through the season. And make sure as well, for everyone watching, to smash a like button. Of course, it does help the channel grow in the algorithm, and it helps show me that you guys, of course, enjoy the content itself. So make sure to smash that like button and vote in that poll in the chat as to who you think will win the race today. But yeah, get your comments and questions in the chat, and I'll get reading them in a moment. One thing I did want to just quickly announce. I'm not going to repeat what I said yesterday in regards to my content plan for the summer break, because, yeah, I've already talked about that. One thing I did want to announce is what my plans are for the next Grand Prix in Hungary. And yeah, I'm only going to be doing a qualifying watch along for the Hungarian Grand Prix for a couple reasons. One, I'm coming to the last couple weeks of my uni semester, and I've got a lot of important work to do next week, so I need to dedicate more time to that. But secondly, the race on next Sunday in Budapest is going to be dry, and dry races in Hungary most of the time tend to be pretty boring. So yeah, that's why I'm not going to do a race watch along for the Hungarian Grand Prix. And most likely, unless the weather forecast, is mixed, I'm probably not going to do a race watch along for the Dutch Grand Prix either, which is the first race back from the summer break. So the next race watch along on the channel after today is probably not going to be until the it'll probably be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, which is in how many weeks? Is it 6 weeks, 7 weeks from now? Yeah, that'll probably be the next race watch along. And then what, a week after that you got the Madrid race, which I'm absolutely dreading because it's just the worst track I've ever seen. And one thing I can guarantee is I will not be doing a race watch along for the Madrid race. It will only be a qualifying stream for that one, because that track can go straight to hell as far as I'm concerned. It is absolutely terrible. Yeah, so in terms of race watch alongs, the next one very likely will be Monza on, is it the 6th of September? I think it is race day, the Italian Grand Prix. So yeah, that'll be the next race watch along. But of course, next week in Hungary, I'll be doing a qualifying watch along. Qualifying is more important in Hungary, as we know. And then for the Dutch Grand Prix as well, I'll be doing a qualifying stream. So there will still be watch alongs, so don't worry about that. But yeah, the next race watch along after today, like I said, is probably going to be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. But let me just have a sip of my water, and then I will read your comments in the chat and any questions you have. So just give me a second, guys. Yeah, let's see what you guys have to say. Actually, I've just remembered, normally we go through and do strategy chat or discussion. So I think we'll do that first, quickly. So let me just have a quick look. Here we go. So Pirelli have predicted that a one-stop strategy is the best strategy for the race today. According to them, there are 5 different one-stop strategies. There's quite a variation as well, which is good. You could either start on the medium compound tyre, pit on lap 17 and go on to the hard compound tyre to finish the race. Or you could start on the soft compound tyre, pit on lap 14 and then go to the end on the hard tyre. And then you've got a couple options of starting on the hard tyre. One is starting on the hard tyre, pitting on lap 24 and then finishing the race on the medium. And then the other hard tyre starting option is start on the hard tyre, pit on lap 27 and then finish the race on the soft compound. And then the only other one-stop option, which I think is risky, very risky actually indeed, is start on the medium, pit on lap 24 and then put a set of soft tyres on. But I'd be pretty surprised if that strategy actually pays off, if anyone actually goes for that. So yeah, I was thinking it was going to be a 2-stop race, but the temperatures have cooled down at Spa. It's not as hot as it was projected to be a few days ago, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it. Personally, for me, here in the southwest of England, it has cooled down. It's a bit fresher now, thankfully, because a few days ago, guys, I was struggling to breathe. It was that hot and humid. I've got asthma, so heat waves, even though I enjoy the sun, I love the sun, I love summer, heat waves and really humid air and hot air for asthma is absolutely terrible. And I reckon, to be honest, if it was another probably 5 degrees higher, I would have had to go hospital to get oxygen because I was really struggling. So it is much better today, and it looks like it's going to be a bit more comfortable going forward for the next couple of weeks, thankfully. But at the track, yeah, it's about, 20 degrees air temperature. So track temperature is probably going to be in the, mid-30s, probably at the highest. That is just not hot enough to really get these tyres, ripped apart in terms of wear and graining enough. I mean, obviously, the Red Bull Ring, a track that really should not wear the tyres out as much as this circuit. At the Red Bull Ring, we had a track temperature of 50 or 52 degrees Celsius. That it really shows you that track temperature really does make a massive difference in terms of the, how it affects strategy in terms of being able to do a 1-stop or a 2-stop or even a 3-stop strategy. So, yeah, the cooler temperatures have allowed for a 1-stop strategy. But if it was 5-6 degrees hotter, then I think that would be enough for a 2-stop race. But yeah, that's just not the case, unfortunately. But in terms of strategy, for Mercedes and Antonelli, they need to hold the lead on the first lap, obviously. And then if Antonelli does have an extra 2 or 3 tenths in his pocket over the rest of the field, he needs to pull away at that rate, because then when we get to the first pit stop, which should be probably between lap 15 and 20, if he can pull away at 1/4 of a second a lap, then by lap 15 he should be 4 or 5 seconds at most clear of whoever is in second. And then by that point he will be able to pit a lap or 2 after whoever behind him pits for an undercut. and then cover them off. So Antonelli, if he holds the lead on the first lap, he has got to push hard in that first stint for that first, say, 15, 20 laps if he wants to hold off the competition and win the Grand Prix. For Max Verstappen, if Max can maintain second at the end of the first lap, then what he needs to do is keep within 2 to 2.5 seconds of Antonelli going into that first pit stop. If he can, then they can try maybe an undercut, to try and close in and really get in the fight there with Antonelli. Whether they try and do an overcut to try and overtake, I mean, really, it depends on where the others behind them are. I don't think an overcut is going to be possible today, though, for Antonelli or Verstappen, because the Ferraris and Russell are close enough on lap time that they won't be able to get away with going 5, 6, or even 7 laps longer, or even going 10 laps longer like Antonelli did at Silverstone and still maintaining the position they were in before the pit stops. So, yeah, I think overcuts are off, are really off side, I guess you could say, for today, if I was to, relate it to football, obviously, given that it's a World Cup final day. So, yeah, if Max is going to win and he's second at the end of the first lap, then, yeah, I think realistically, unless he's got the pace to overtake, which not sure he will have, yeah, that's the only way, is keep within a couple seconds and try and undercut, and then in that way you can try and get under Antonelli's skin and go for the win. For George Russell, I think he's going to be pretty aggressive today. He has to be, really, if he wants to beat Antonelli in the race today. So at the start, I'm expecting Russell to be really aggressive, because if he can get a good start, and even at least ahead of Verstappen, then he might be able to have a right go at his teammate and maybe get into the lead of the race, which would really turn this race upside down. But even if he doesn't get into the lead, if he's second or third at the end of the first lap, I think on strategy, I think he's going to be more so aggressive again, because he needs to be. One, to secure second, and for Mercedes to secure a 1-2, but for Russell to get in, to the fight with Antonelli and to try and claw back even more points in the championship battle. So Russell, I think, will be aggressive today. Ferrari is an interesting one, because I think they've got the pace for the podium. They should be able to keep up with Russell, maybe Verstappen and Antonelli, depending on, if they're fighting for position or, losing time for whatever reason. They're the only team, I think, not the only team out the front four, but in terms of the fight for the podium, they might actually be able to make an overcut work to an extent. But it depends on two things. One, they need to keep both cars ahead of the McLaren and Piastri. And two, they need to pull away from Piastri by 2 or 3 tenths a lap, if they can. And if they can do that, then they can maybe go 3, 4 laps longer than Russell or Verstappen or Antonelli, and then have fresher tyres for the second half of the Grand Prix. The one team that definitely can do an overcut is McLaren, which is why you need to keep your eyes on McLaren today, because one, they've got a faster car this weekend than we expected. I don't think any of us expected them to be third with Lando Norris in qualifying, and, for them to have probably the second best car, you'd have to say, in qualifying. I thought they would be closer to pole, but I didn't think they would be any higher than the fourth quickest team, to be honest, coming into this weekend. with Oscar Piastri in 6th, obviously behind him you've got Lindblad and Bortoletto and all of the midfield. He should be able to pull away from those cars pretty quickly. So Piastri will be able to go a few laps longer, but also Lando Norris in 13th. If he can very quickly get his way past the 2 Audis, the 2 Alpines, and the 2 Racing Bull cars, he could go much longer into the race to give himself, nice fresh tyres for the end. Sorry, I just had to cough there. So yeah, Lando Norris, I think, is someone definitely on strategy that you need to look out for. Let me just cough again because my throat, you can still hear it. It's not good. Right, hopefully that's a tad better for now. But yeah, Lando Norris, he's the one to look out for, because if he can, like I said, quickly get past those midfield runners of Lindblad, Bortoletto, Lawson, Gasly, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, and let's say, and to be honest, I think McLaren should try it because they've got nothing to lose with Lando in 13th place. If they start on the hard compound tyre and go until, let's say, lap 27 to lap 30, they could, make that work and have the pace at the end of the race, possibly, to get in that fight for the podium. So do not count out McLaren. McLaren do have, I think, the most, by far, options on strategy today, because obviously the undercut anyone can do. But for Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes, they can't really do an overcut because they haven't got quite enough pace to pull away from cars behind to still maintain position, when they come out from their pit stop in relation to where they were before the pit stops. McLaren have got that freedom. So watch out for McLaren. I think you're going to see them. I mean, they do typically go quite a bit longer with their first stint than probably anyone, to be honest. They're still pretty good at looking after their tyres of McLaren. So yeah, watch out for McLaren today in regards to strategy, because if they can go a few laps longer, we've seen here at Spa, fresh tyres, especially if someone ahead is suffering issues with tyres, we've seen plenty of times here at Spa, it has massively paid off. I remember Oscar Piastri at this particular Grand Prix, I think a couple years ago for McLaren, went quite a bit long with his, was it, I'm not sure it was his first stint, I think it was his second stint, and then had really fresh tyres for the end of the race, and he was so close to winning that race. Maybe if McLaren had pitted him a lap earlier that day, then he would have probably ended up winning the Belgian Grand Prix. So, absolutely, it is worth doing for McLaren if they've got the pace and they can get through with Lando Norris, who is definitely the quicker McLaren driver this weekend. If he can get through those slower cars quickly, say by lap 3, lap 4, if he can get past them, then I think he's, I won't say fully in business, but he's in good shape to have clearly an effect on, what happens in that podium fight. So in terms of strategy, those are the options and the strategical choices that could be made. Could be made today. Again, apologies about my throat. The reason my throat's the way it is not because I've worn it out. It's because I've closed my window. Obviously, because I don't want anyone outside hearing me screaming my head off. But it's because of the hot air of my room. It's obviously, the hotter and closer the air, it makes your throat close up more. So that's what it is. I'll just have to make sure to keep drinking through the stream. But yeah, let's now read your comments. So keep them coming, and I will get to some of the best I can for the next, probably 40 minutes, 45 minutes, I reckon. And then I'll do a roundup of the teams, probably 15 to 20 minutes before the race starts. And then, obviously, I'll finish up the poll not long before the race starts. Make sure to vote in the poll, by the way, if you haven't already. Let me know who you think's going to win the race today. But, yeah. Off Driz says, afternoon, Chazza. Afternoon to you. I think Kimi will run away with this. I can't lie. I think the fight will be for second place unless Kimi gets another dreadful start like he did at Silverstone. The race will be interesting. That's another thing to remember. Yeah, Red Bull have got poor starts, but so have Antonelli. Antonelli's had plenty of poor starts this season. And yeah, did at Silverstone. And arguably you could say, well, it didn't cost him the win. The wheel shield issue cost him the win, but it made his life a lot harder than it needed to be. Hello to KH, good to see you. Todd saying, I watched the onboard poll out. The super clipper here is so bad. I can't watch it. It's just too... It hurts too much as a, a true F1, fanatic or whatever you want to call me. I can't do it. Watching the Suzuka pole lap earlier this year was soul destroying, so I can't imagine what it's like for this track, to be honest. But yeah, I can't do it. The super clipping is still an issue. Again, it will improve over time, so it's gonna get better, but yeah, it's still. It's something that should have never happened. Carlos Sainz actually came out and said after qualifying that, I think he said, what was it? In 2023, whoever, tested these regulations on the, simulators and still thought this was a good idea needs to take a lot of responsibility, basically, for, the way these cars are. And absolutely, I agree with the guy. The people who tested these regulations and thought, yeah, this is absolutely what Formula One should be. They shouldn't be allowed anywhere near any motorsport series whatsoever. Todd says, I picked Max to win, but yeah, probably Kimi going to take it. He's got the best car unless it breaks down. Even though I think Max will win, I will agree. I think Kimi is the favourite because the Mercedes car, I do think, is the quicker car in race trim. Not by that much, but yeah, he is the favourite, definitely. Verstappen, though, we know, doesn't need the best car to win. So, yeah, it's going to be a great battle today. I really hope. As long as Max gets at least a okay start, I think we're in for a really good battle in the race today. But I think one thing that I did talk about yesterday, but I'll mention it again because it is important in regards for today's race. Antonelli has to win today. Absolutely must win. Even if he finishes second and finishes ahead of Russell and Hamilton, that's not enough. He must win the race. Max Verstappen obviously is not in the championship fight, so he can take that risk to go and get the win. Antonelli cannot, because if he ends up having a crash with Max, then Russell or Hamilton could very well come through and win, and then Antonelli would have lost all of the advantage basically that he had over those two drivers. So that is one very important thing to remember today. Max doesn't need, or no, Kimi doesn't need to take any risks today, but Max can do whatever he wants because he knows the championship is all but gone. One driver that does interest me, though, today is Charles Leclerc, because obviously won the last Grand Prix. He's ahead of Hamilton on the grid. If Ferrari have got the pace to be on the podium, if not maybe even win the race, if Leclerc ends up finishing second or third, and maybe, let's say, somehow beats Antonelli, do we start to consider Leclerc a championship contender? Or is he too far behind? I think Leclerc is, he's like 75 points behind or something like that. It is something to consider if Leclerc gets a really strong result today. Ferrari should be very quick next week in Hungary. Whether they'll be winning the race, I don't think we can quite say that yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if they took pole position or even locked out the front row, to be honest, in Hungary, because it's the type of track where you would fancy the Ferrari car to be, very competitive. But also, McLaren, I think, are going to be very strong in Hungary. Their car, I think, is very well suited to a circuit like that. And what do you call it? Mercedes will be in there as well. Red Bull, unfortunately, I don't think are going to be a factor in Hungary. Their car is just not good around that type of circuit, unfortunately. But qualifying next week in Hungary should be very close and exciting. I think we're going to have probably 5, maybe 6 different drivers fighting for pole position. So, and in terms of Ferrari, if they want to win the championship, at least say the Constructors' Championship, really, they've got to win next week in Hungary. But in terms of today, Leclerc and Hamilton, very much interested to see what they do today. KH says if Max gets lucky on a pit stop on undercuts Antonelli and wins. Oftrus asking, it's cold, cloudy conditions. Chaz, which of the top teams do you think will suit the cold conditions? It's not cold. It's cold for them because they live in places that are, tropical and way hotter. Or, at least travel to races that are a lot more tropical or hotter. So, it's not cold. It's just colder than, say, what we had at Silverstone 2 weeks ago or Austria the week before that. In terms of, cooler conditions, you'd probably say Mercedes. It helps with the reliability side. But generally, I still think it's going to end, in terms of, managing the tyres, I think it's still going to end up being, McLaren and Ferrari, probably the two teams who look after their tyres better. Oftrus says, let's forget that Aston Martin existed. I think was that what he said? Yeah, pretty much. Till next weekend. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing though. Their car is so far off the pace. This new car apparently is going to be worth about 2.5 seconds of lap time. They would still be I mean, let's say this weekend they had a car that was 2.5 seconds quicker than where they are now. They'd still be 3 seconds off pole. So, you know what I mean? All it would do is put them ahead of Cadillac, and maybe in the odd session they could get into Q2. maybe. I mean, that's still horrendous. But that is because this Aston Martin car fundamentally is so horrendously bad. Ewok says, I foresee lots of safety car periods, heavily FIA managed race. No, that's not going to happen. We don't tend to have, to be honest, that many safety cars here. Last year was a bit of a wet race. For the first one, was it like 20 laps, and then it went dry. 2024, we didn't have a safety car. 2023 and 2022, we didn't have a safety car. I think the last safety car we had in a dry race was 2020. It was when Russell in the Williams and Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo had that really big crash at the end of the Fania chicane, where Gasly and Hamilton have already crashed this weekend. So, safety cars in the dry at Spa, unless there's a gigantic crash at turn one, that's normally the only reason why there would be a safety car at this particular track. Rook's saying, so have you covered the structures? The most saying one stopper is saying one stopper as a Simmons, put two stoppers 10 seconds slower. Yeah, I've covered that. It's a shame. I was hoping it would be a two-stop race because it would just make things a lot more exciting in regards to strategy and, you know, differences in strategy and all of that. Ewok asking, do you think Spa needs a fresh layout, or is the size of the cars an issue to poor races? Size of the cars is not an issue here. It's an issue around certain street circuits, but here it's not a problem. The last few years, I think the reason in the ground effect era the races here were not that good was because it wasn't as easy to overtake in a way with those ground effect cars as it was supposed to be, because DRS in the ground effect era did not actually give you as much of an advantage as it did in the era before that, the 2017 to 2021 era, where DRS back then was more powerful, and also the cars were punching a bigger hole in the air. So once you got on the slipstream with DRS, you would close in quicker, so we would see more overtaking and more action with those cars than we did in the ground effect era. So I think with these cars, with the battery, with the overtake boost being as powerful as it is, I think we're going to see a lot of overtaking. My fear, though, is a lot of it is going to be just extremely easy, one car just blasting past another with, like a 20 km/h or more difference. That's my fear today. But, we'll see when we get into the race itself, whether it's too much or just right. But no, the Spa doesn't need a new layout. I mean, I would rather they go back to the old layout, to be honest, the old bus stop chicane from the 90s and the old La Source hairpin. I thought that was way better than what we've got now. Obviously, the changes they made to the track, in terms of the current layout, it was for 2007. We did have, though, a new bus stop chicane in 2004 and 2005. That bus stop chicane, though, was absolutely horrendous. It did see a couple really good overtakes, though. I remember Montoya going around the outside of Michael Schumacher at the bus stop on the day where Michael won his 7th championship. That was a great overtake, but it was nowhere near as good as the old bus stop chicane. I'd love to see the old bus stop chicane with these cars, because the drivers, I think, would really throw it into the bus stop and really attack it, and I think it'd be great seeing them throw it in and just attack those curbs and then try and slam on the power coming out. It'd be so much better. Turbo power, how many times has someone lower than third One in Belgium. Well, Max did it, didn't he? A couple times, 2023 and 2022. Lewis Hamilton, I don't think, was outside of the top 3 when he won it in 2024. I'm just trying to think. Daniel Ricciardo won this race in 2014 from 5th, I want to say, on the grid. That was the day where Hamilton and Rosberg collided. Rosberg puncturing Hamilton's tyre. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, his final win at Spa was from 6th on the grid, which I still laugh at. The start he made and then the restart with the Kurz. The reason I laugh quite a bit, actually, at the start he made is because, and I like that Crystal is in the chat, because obviously he's a big and old-time Kimi Raikkonen fan. He'll know this, but Kimi, this just shows you how smart he was and how smart the absolute best drivers are. 2 years in a row, Kimi deliberately went wide at turn 1 when it used to be tarmac, the runoff. But one, to avoid an accident, but also because he knew there was grip out there and that he could come back on the track and he wouldn't, lose out. But if you look at that 2009 start, he just goes off and then he gains like 2 or 3 positions and then overtakes the BMW, and then safety car comes out, comes back in, and then he just presses the Kurz button and overtakes Fisichella. It's just such a funny start to me. But yeah, Kimi in 2009, Kimi in 2004, and then if you look at the 90s, if you exclude the wet races, I think I'm not sure actually in the 90s who won from outside the top 3. Again, excluding the wet races. There was a race that Michael Schumacher won here at Spa from, I think, was it like 16th on the grid, but that was a wet and dry race in 95. That was 31 years ago. But, yeah. Giovanni says, Kimi, you can do it. Ofter says, I think balance would... the engine reg shouldn't be 60-40. I think it should be 70-30. I think next year and the year after it is going to be not far from that. So it will be probably closer to what you want, but it still won't be. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it should be 70-30. But yeah, at least it's going in that direction. Let me just see if I can find some other comments here. Ofter is saying McLaren have got upgrades next week as well. Good to see. If those upgrades, I mean, this is the exciting thing with McLaren, is they're so good at developing their car, as we've already seen this season, but especially in the last couple of years. If that upgrade works and gives them another like 2-3 tenths, McLaren could be back to regularly fighting for podiums and even wins, because they've got the Mercedes engine, but they still are lacking a bit on the downforce side. So McLaren, absolutely, if they can improve yet again, very much look forward to seeing where they'll be at. But even without those upgrades, I think next week in Hungary, they're going to be right in that fight for pole and the win, no doubt. So if those upgrades do give them an extra 2 or 3 tenths, they might even dominate next weekend. Crystal saying Aston farting 3 seconds slower than Senna's 91 pole. Absolutely. What's the fuel weight per kilogram time loss at this track? I.e., how much extra weight would you have to put on a Merc to make it as slow as the Astons? Well, I think, isn't it 10 kilos of fuel adds like 0.2 of a second to your lap time? I think that's the case. I think that's how it at least used to be in the refueling era. I'm not sure if it's quite the same here. Obviously, this is a longer track than usual. To be as slow as Aston Martin, they'd have to have probably double the size of the fuel tank they have just on one car, and even then, they probably would be quicker. It's seriously, it really is incredible just how far off the pace they are. But yeah, you would need a lot of extra fuel to be as slow as Aston Martin. You'd need what, 200 kilos at least? And I think that's even way under what you probably need. You probably need more like 300, to be honest. So yeah, it would be ridiculous amount of extra weight and fuel. Ofter is asking, do you think Antonelli's championship will be under threat by Ferrari after the summer at Zandvoort and Monza? Well, let's throw Madrid in there as well, because that's the final European race, and that's only a week after the Italian Grand Prix. It's difficult to say because of these reliability issues he keeps having. Without those, I think Antonelli is still quite clearly the favourite. I think for Kimi, though, even if he doesn't finish next weekend's race, if he wins today, at least he keeps that positive momentum going. So that, let's say next week he doesn't finish because someone crashes into him or he has another issue. It does tend to be hotter in Budapest than it is here at Spa. So heat will be more of an issue next weekend. Yeah, it at least keeps that positive momentum for Antonelli if he wins today, but also it shows and continues to prove to Antonelli and to the rest that as long as Kimi finishes and has a normal race, he wins, which is still a formidable thing to consider for his rivals, and obviously very big advantage for Antonelli to have over his rivals. So I think, yeah, if he wins today, and then in Hungary, if he can just get on the podium, if he finishes the race, then I think that's good enough. And then you've got Zandvoort, Monza, Madrid. It's not a triple header, by the way. You've got Zandvoort, then a 2-week break, then Monza, and then a week later is Madrid. If he can, I think if he can win 2 of those 3 races out of Zandvoort, Monza, and Madrid, then I think going into or coming out of the European season, I think he will be the clear favourite to get it done and will be probably in a position to have one hand on the championship trophy. Remember, because of what's going on in the Middle East, I don't know if you guys have seen, but the US, once again, is bombing Iran. The Qatar and Abu Dhabi Grand Prix don't look like they're going to happen. Bahrain's not going to happen. They've been trying desperately, FOM, to get that race, to ram it in somewhere in the calendar, but there's just nowhere to put it. And plus, you can't race in the Middle East right now. You just can't. It's too dangerous. Liberty, though, they are, I think, still trying to get an extra at least race or 2 onto the calendar. So that is another advantage for Antonelli, is, let's say, coming out of the Madrid race and out of the European season, he's got 40 or a 50-point lead, he might not have to have as many races left to defend that lead and win the championship as, say, Piastri did last year coming out of the European season, because you're going to have 2 less races with Qatar and Abu Dhabi, and we don't know yet if they're going to be replaced. I think one of them maybe will be replaced, but I'm not sure both of them will. Personally, I think the Turkish Grand Prix is going to happen in November for 2 reasons. One, they've already got a contract for the Turkish Grand Prix. The Turkish Grand Prix is permanently on the calendar starting from next year, but also we've had a Grand Prix in Turkey in November before, back in 2020, and Turkey has before come in as an emergency race back in 2020. So I think the Turkish Grand Prix will be in November. I think that'll be maybe the final race of the season. We'll see. But that's a big advantage if there is say 1 or 2 less races than what was originally planned. So, yeah, Antonelli, if he can win, I mean, we've got 5 more races in the European season. Today, next week in Hungary, Zandvoort, Monza, Madrid. If he can win 3 of those 5, then I think he's pretty much got it done, unless he, has a terrible end to the season like Piastri did. But I don't believe Antonelli will. Antonelli is better than Oscar in terms of a talent. And I do think Antonelli is performing better than Piastri did last season as well. So, yeah, that's what Kimi needs to do. Ewok asking, would anyone want to see a refueling return to F1? No. I know the FIA and Liberty Media are actually they're actually doing a study right now to see if it would be something that would actually add to the racing or spectacle or whatever. So we'll see what happens with that. And that would be for 2031, by the way. That's, if refueling comes back, it'll be with those V8 engines in 2031, which is obviously in 5 years from now. But I don't want to see it. I really don't want to see it. I know the reason people want refueling back and they like refueling is because Formula One, when we had refueling, was really exciting. But that was back in a time where the cars were less reliable, so you get more, say, wacky, crazy results. But also back then, you could push much harder with your cars. Every lap was a qualifying lap. It wasn't really about it wasn't about managing tires or tire strategy or overtakes necessarily, because everyone was on different strategies. And normally when overtakes happened back then, it was because it was either you did have overtakes where it was one driver having a faster car or being faster himself, but mostly the overtakes back then were one car being lighter than the other at that particular time when the overtake took place. So it was less of a genuine overtake than what we would see now, because everyone is pretty much fueled up, at a similar rate. I'm just quickly, by the way, just posting a link of the stream out, so if you're wondering why I'm umming and ahhing, that's why. But yeah, I don't want to see it. I don't think we need refueling to have exciting, good races. It's just not needed. I mean, look at the 2 arguably of the greatest seasons in Formula One history have happened in the last 20 years, and both in those seasons we didn't have refueling, 2012 and 2021. So it's not needed. What is needed is the tires need to be more degradable, and there needs to be they need to degrade at the point where we have at least 2-stop races or variation in strategy. That's what we need. And I really hope by 2031 that Pirelli are gone, because I'm just sick to fucking death of them. But let me just post a link of the stream out quick. Control here to watch along the race at Spa Francorchamps. And hopefully we'll get some more people hopping on soon. Just a reminder, Nib, who usually is my co-commentator, he can't join me today. He's just not. He's too busy, unfortunately, to hop on. So, yeah, he'll be on for the next race watch along, which, like I said, is probably going to be the Italian Grand Prix in September. So, yeah, it'll just be a solo from me today. Good to see Astro, who says, I hope and predict Lewis can win. Russell second, and then Leclerc third, Piastri fourth, and then Lindblad, Bortoletto, Lawson, Hulkenberg, Behrman, and Albon. If Behrman finished ninth, I think he'd cry, to be honest, because they are that far off the pace. Behrman, I think, is nearly 2 seconds slower than the Racing Bulls car. So, yeah, that'd be quite incredible. Crystal saying Solov rumoured to replace Ocon. You say that. I've actually seen a report earlier on X, which obviously used to be Twitter. It really is Twitter, but, officially it is called X. Yeah, it was a journalist posting who the 3 options are for Ocon's seat, and it was Rafa Camara from F2, Yuki Tsunoda, who we knew was a candidate, and obviously Tsunoda is desperately trying to get back onto the grid. And the final candidate was a surprising one, not a name I've heard linked with any seat. It's the reigning Formula 2 champion, Leonardo Fornaroli. Did not think that he was a contender for a Formula 1 seat, but looks like he is. But, I've already made my point before. I think they should go for a young driver, because Behrman is going to leave them soon, and they need a driver for the future to lead them. So either Camara or Fornaroli, I think, is the choice. Sonoda's good enough to be on the grid, but I just don't think Tsunoda is what Haas needs right now. Unless Behrman is leaving as well. Ocon, we know he's done. He's absolutely beyond washed. He is finished beyond belief. But if Behrman leaves at the end of this season as well, then I think then they would need Tsunoda to have some experience in that team. But I think, I still think Behrman and Camara, I think that is the driver lineup it should be. And I think that is the driver lineup it will be next season. Marco Catania says, Ocon has been terrible this year, waste of seat. Genuinely gone under the radar for how awful he's been this year. Yeah, I think it's strange to me, because he started last season so well. I thought he was genuinely one of the top 10 probably drivers on the grid in the first half of last season. If you go watch my driver rankings video from about a year ago, where I did a mid-season driver ranking for 2025, I think I had him in my top 10, or maybe just outside. I really thought he had a great first half of the season. But since that summer break, he just has not been the same driver. I don't know what it is, but he is not the same driver. I think the only explanation is that he has got to that point of his career where he just doesn't have it anymore. every driver on the grid is able to produce that, great performance here and there. Obviously, Ocon finished 9th in Monaco from 17th on the grid. Yeah, that was a great performance, but that's just too few and far between. What is surprising, though, as I've just checked, he's not even 30 years old, is Ocon. He's 29. 29 years old, and he's already basically done. I really thought Ocon would have another 5 years, probably, in F1. I did not think when he went to Haas from Alpine, I did not think, oh yeah, he's going to be done soon. No way. I thought he had another few years left, but he's not performing anywhere near well enough to deserve a seat. The only seat he could get Ocon if he genuinely wants to stay on the grid is Cadillac, for two reasons. One, I think he would do a better job than Bottas, who is even more washed than Ocon is. Bottas, I don't even think, is really trying, to be honest. Not that he's not trying, but I just don't think Bottas really cares, to be honest. I think he's just trying to help the team out, and, if he can go quick, then great, but I don't think he's really bothered where he finishes. I think Perez is much more the team leader of that team. And then, if they're going to replace Bottas, which they probably need to, then Ocon is an option. I know some of you may say, oh, Perez and Ocon, they can't possibly be teammates. That was 10 years ago. Ocon is nearly 30. Perez is, 35, 36. I'm sure they'll be fine, to be honest. So, I don't see why that wouldn't be a good lineup for Cadillac. But again, it all depends on who's available, who you can sign. Because if there's better drivers out there than Ocon, then Cadillac will probably go and sign them. But yeah, Ocon is absolutely finished. I do think, though, considering how young he is, I think he can have a very good long career in endurance racing. He's definitely good enough. He just needs a good to get with a good, say, manufacturer. And if he can, I think he should be off to the races, really. Astro asking, weather forecast? Dry, cloudy. Obviously at Spa, you never know when the rain could be coming. But I don't think it's going to be rain today. It's, the wind is pretty still. It's just not rain conditions, I don't think. But keep your comments coming, as Marco Catania saying Aston Martin's gap to pole was larger than Pedro de la Rosa's in HRT in 2012. Yeah, I did mention that earlier, and I'm still astonished by that stat. Because HRT have long been, referred to as, say, in modern F1, say since the start of the millennium, as being the worst F1 team in recent history. But I think Aston Martin at this point have cleared the bar by quite a margin. So, And unfortunately for us, in terms of just really judging or seeing how bad Aston Martin can fall, this is the last race we're going to really see that, because once they bring their B car next week in Hungary, they'll still be really bad, but they will be at least fighting Cadillac. I mean, they're not even fighting Cadillac. Cadillac are over a second a lap quicker than them. If you told someone a year ago that Cadillac would be a second a lap quicker at Spa than Aston Martin, they'd assume Cadillac would be dominating the sport. It's mental. It's absolutely mental. But that's the way it is. But I think what I'm gonna do, keep your comments coming. what I'm going to do with 20 minutes to go now until the race starts, I'm going to do a quick roundup of the teams and just quickly go through where they should finish, what they should aim for, and generally how I think they'll do today. So for Mercedes-Benz, of course, the race win is what they need to try and get. Antonelli on pole. I think he does have the best pace to win. I think the Mercedes car is the quickest, but I don't think it's quick enough to the point where they're going to like absolutely crush the field. The start, though, is so important here. You can literally go, even if you lead the race out of turn 1, you can still be 3rd or 4th by the time you brake for Leclerc at the end of the Camel Straight. It really is an extraordinary start that we do tend to see here at Spa. So the start is absolutely crucial. If Antonelli leads at the end of lap 1, I think he's got a probably 70 to 80% chance of winning at that point, because the Mercedes is pretty quick. And Antonelli still on top form. We'll see how George Russell does. Russell, if Antonelli does win, needs to be at least 2nd. Ferrari, it'd be great if they could win today. It really would. It would just confirm even more that, yes, they are championship contenders. But I'm not sure they truly have the pace to win. It kind of feels similar to the Red Bull Ring, where they had a decent grid position, but it was not actually maybe not masking how slow they really were, but they are probably not as quick as we hoped they will be. Like what we saw in Austria, back 3 weeks ago. I think they've got the pace for the podium, 100%, and I think they will finish on the podium. But the race win, I think they need a bit of fortune to go their way if they're going to get the victory done. But yeah, podium, I think they get it, but a race win, if they can get that, that would really get them in a not a perfect position for the championship, but it would really get them in potentially pole position to win the championship. Because if they were to win today, that'd be 3 wins in the last 4 races. Red Bull have not won a race this season. Max Verstappen has not won since the last Grand Prix of 2025. This is his best chance, I think, to win in 2026. Not period. He'll have other chances this year, but the best chance so far. In Austria, he was so close to winning, but he was 5th on the grid. This time he's on the front row, so he has got a magnificent chance. It all comes down, though, to the start for Verstappen. If he has another horrible start, then he can't win at that point. But if he can at least keep with Antonelli in that first stint or so, keep right with him, he's right in play to possibly win this Grand Prix. McLaren, they were quick in qualifying, but the grid penalty really costing them the chance to have a really good chance of finishing on the podium. They are 6th and 13th on the grid. Again, as I said earlier, they've got many strategy options that they could go for with them being in the positions they are. So keep an eye on them. Then definitely, you can't count them out. But yeah, their grid position is tricky if they are to get anywhere near the podium. Now into the midfield, Audi, of course, starting 8th with Gabriel Bortoleto. With how well he's driving and the improved pace we've seen from the Audi from practice to qualifying, I think Audi definitely can score a point today. But it's all going to be dependent on the pace of Liam Lawson. If Lawson is still lapping quite a bit slower than his teammate, then I think they can do it. But if Lawson improves today, it's going to be pretty tough. Haas, they're just too slow. They just haven't got the pace and the power to compete. Racing Bulls are still by far the quickest midfield team. And in fact, they're probably closer to the front 4 than they are to the midfield at this point. Arvid Lindblad, 7th on the grid. Watch out for him. We know he can get a great start to a Grand Prix. We saw that in the first Grand Prix of the season. Liam Lawson, if he can improve today and perform more like he has been this year, he probably finishes in the top 10. If Racing Bulls can finish at least 9th and 10th, if all of the front-running teams finish, Once again, that is a brilliant result, and that would see them go up to 5th in the championship. Alpine are 10th and 11th. They tried to get in the mix by trimming the wings, but it just didn't work. I don't really see what they can do today. I think they need to get a bit of luck if they're going to score a point, to be honest. Audi and Racing Bulls look quicker. I think 12th and 13th is more likely where they end up. Williams are too slow. Aston Martin are the worst team ever. And Cadillac, as long as Cadillac finish the race, you just never know here at Spa. We've had big crashes here where multiple cars have, exited the race. Look at 2012. 2018 was another one where we had a few cars exit from a start line accident. So it is not impossible that they could get maybe a bit of a higher finish today than than what they would get if it wasn't for those retirements. So hopefully they can finish. It's not as hot today as it was going to be. So finishing the race today shouldn't be as difficult as it was a few weeks ago in Austria. And here is my top 10 prediction. I think Max Verstappen will just about win the race, from Antonelli 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Hamilton 4th, and then Russell 5th, Piastri 6th, Norris 7th, Hadjar 8th, Lindblad 9th, and Bortoletto in P10. As we have got, guys, about 13 minutes to go until the race begins. Sky, by the way, Sky F1, have just shown a weather radar, and there is rain building up in the area. So we might have some rain about in the area, and whether it hits the track or not, we'll have to see. Supercab says, hi guys, won't be able to listen today, but have a fun race. Cheers, mate. Have a good one. So yeah, I will keep an eye on that, and I will let you guys know if there is any any rain coming in. This is why I love Spa. The forecast coming into the weekend was, I wouldn't say a proper hot race, but sunny, dry, pretty good weekend, and then suddenly on race day, rain starts appearing. I just love this place, and it is an absolute crime that this track is going to be once every 2 years soon on the calendar. Absolute crime. Spa should be on the calendar every year, and anyone who argues against that is not a Formula One fan, as far as I'm concerned. As they're just showing on Sky now replays of previous starts. They're just showing the 2024 start. The only thing I remember from that start is Lando Norris inexplicably driving into the gravel for no reason and costing himself loads of positions. Cost himself at least a podium that day with that stunt. Sainz starts P19, says Rooks. Right, cheers for that. Yeah, my starting grid graphic I made before the penalty, so obviously, I can't go back and change that. But I thought he was going to start 19th, so that's not a surprise. But good to know officially, obviously, where he is starting. But yeah, we are only 10 minutes away as the clouds, I wouldn't say continue to build, but the darker clouds definitely are forming in the area. And we will see if we do get some rain for this Grand Prix. But what I'm going to do is read out a few final comments from you guys, and then we are going to get into the results of the poll which is running in the chat. And then I will go through a final couple bits of detail before the race starts. Vettel Hamilton says, could you imagine if Max and Kimi have a poor start to this race? It'd really spice things up. Crystal saying that this track deserves full revving V10s, not battery mules. Exactly. 10% chance of rain from what I've read. We've heard it before, haven't we? Oh, only a 10 or 20% chance, and then it starts absolutely pissing down at like one corner. Astra says, I can't believe they'd even contemplate not having Spa for a year. Crime, absolutely yes. Well, the reason they contemplated it, and they've done it, is because Liberty Media, they don't care about Formula One in terms of the actual sport itself. They care about it as a product. They are your typical capitalist vultures, essentially. Formula One to them is a product. And to them, the strategy and the goal is to get as much money out of the product as they can. This is why I don't like and really quite hate capitalism. And that's not to say I'm a fan of socialism, because I'm not. I hate that too. But this is what, this is what happens to certain sports that get took over by people who treat it like a product. Is it becomes all about profit rather than the quality of the product itself. Because, I mean, Bernie Ecclestone, yeah, he was motivated probably quite a bit by money, and he wasn't a good guy. I mean, I'll say wasn't. He's still alive somehow. I still see him at races. I was just amazed he's still alive, to be honest. He's almost 100. But the difference with Bernie is he would not even think about dropping Spa off the calendar. He wouldn't. I know Spa wasn't on the calendar in 03 and 06, but that was, I think, once. I think the 03 one was because of tobacco advertising. There was an argument over that because the laws in Europe were changing at the time in terms of tobacco advertising. And then 2006 was because I think they were doing it was because of the layout. They were rebuilding the track. But Bernie, I don't think, would ever actually consider getting rid of this circuit. Because Bernie, whilst, yes, he was motivated by money, he actually cared about Formula One. Because Formula One was in his blood. He was basically Mr. Formula One. He was the guy who put it as a product really on the map. And it wasn't by treating it as a product. It was by, showing just how great Formula One is and can be. But that's the problem with Liberty Media, is they are your typical capitalists where it's just all about product and profit. They don't care for the sport itself. If they could, they'd get rid of Silverstone, Monaco, Monza, Suzuka, all those tracks if they could, if it meant making more money. That's what you need to remember. Those tracks, once they're no longer as profitable as other circuits could be, and they get in these new offers from other countries or places in America that want to host an F1 race, they'll be gone. Simple as. And that's why I don't like them, because they don't have the best interests at heart for Formula One. It's just all about money. Nothing else. Anyway, enough of money and capitalism and all that rubbish. Let's get into this poll and let's read out the results of the poll so you guys have voted for. Yeah, Bernie, 95 years old. Absolutely crazy. I think he was at the Austrian Grand Prix 3 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure I saw him there. It was one of the races. It was either that or maybe Silverstone. But yeah, 225 votes. And I asked you guys who will win the Belgian Grand Prix today. 48% of the vote goes to Kimi Antonelli, 29% for Verstappen, 18% for Hamilton, and 5% for George Russell. I can absolutely understand why you guys think Antonelli will win, but I think he'll do it today. Especially if the rain falls, we know that Max Verstappen can make it work in mixed or wet conditions. But let's get into a final couple important bits of detail before we start this Belgian Grand Prix. The Drivers' Championship standings, of course, very important coming into this race. Antonelli, after his non-point score at Silverstone, is only 25 points clear of George Russell in the championship. Hamilton in third, 32 points off the lead. Leclerc fourth, Norris fifth, Piastri sixth. Max Verstappen has got a good chance to move up into the top six today. He's currently seventh and only 6 points behind Piastri. Isaac Hadjar in eighth, Gasly ninth, and Lawson only 3 points behind in 10th. And on the constructors' side, Mercedes about 80 points clear of Ferrari, McLaren in third, Red Bull fourth, Alpine fifth, but only 1 point clear of Racing Bulls. Racing Bulls finish where they're starting, and Alpine finish where they're starting. Then now Alpine will drop down to sixth behind the Racing Bulls team. Haas then are in seventh, Williams in eighth, Audi ninth, looking to close the gap to Williams, Aston Martin 10th, and Cadillac last of all. But let's go through your starting grid for the 2026 Belgian Grand Prix. So on the front row, two absolute generational drivers. Kimi Antonelli, the championship leader, and the 4 times world champion himself, Max Verstappen. On the second row, George Russell and Charles Leclerc, two drivers who've won of the last 2 races. Russell winning in Austria 3 weeks ago, and then a week after that, Leclerc winning at Silverstone. On the third row, Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, two drivers who finished first and second at this race 2 years ago. On the fourth row, Arvid Lindblad and the F2 champion of a couple years ago, Gabriele Bortoleto. And completed the top 10, Liam Lawson and Pierre Gasly. Just outside of the top 10, Franco Colapinto and Nico Hulkenberg. Lando Norris with his 10th-place penalty starts 13th, and Carlos Sainz was going to start 14th, but now has a penalty, so he'll start 19th, meaning it will be Oliver Behrman in 14th with Albon 15th. Esteban Ocon will be 16th with Valtteri Bottas in 17th. And then it will be Perez 18th, Carlos Sainz 19th, Lance Stroll in 20th. And on the back row of the grid, Isaac Hadjar and Fernando Alonso starting 22nd and last. That is your starting grid for this Belgian Grand Prix. And we'll find out who's starting on what tyre soon enough. But yeah, Sainz 19th. I've just corrected that. So, good for Cadillac, though. The grid penalty situations allowed them to start a couple positions higher. They're 17th and 18th on the grid. As the drivers get their gloves on, and they're about to shut down those helmets and get on with this formation lap. Rook saying everyone on the mediums except for Norris, Perez, Stroll, Alonso on hards, and Bottas and Sainz are on the soft compound tyre. Interesting that Cadillac are going for the soft tyre. Carlos Sainz, not necessarily surprised because he needs to, get back up towards where he started from. But let me just, update those tyre graphics. So Bottas on the soft, Perez on the hard, Sainz on the soft as the formation lap is just about to start. And then the two Aston Martins, I believe, are on the hard compound tyre as the formation lap begins right now. And Antonelli taking a bit of time to get away, but he does eventually get away. I did say in the build-up to the race that I thought Lando Norris might be worth starting on the hard tyre to go long, and clearly that's what they're doing. They're going to try and get past the as this car's really slowly getting off the grid, but they are getting off the grid. There's yellow flags flying, but the car's just taking their time getting off the grid for this formation lap. Yeah, if we can get past those midfield cars of Lindblad, Bortoletto, Lawson, Gasly, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, then Lando can go longer, much longer, and maybe coming back through at the end on the medium. As also Isaac Hadjar is on the hard compound tyre. Forgot to put that. Yeah, thanks Rooks for reminding me of that. So Hadjar also going to do the same thing. That's to try and get them somehow back into the fight with the other front-running cars. Obviously, a safety car probably for Hadjar will help massively if it comes out, a few laps into the race. As record-breaking attendance for this weekend's race, 400,000 people have poured through the gates and through the forest. But, yeah, Hadjar will need a safety car probably around, probably any time after lap 10, I would imagine. Lando Norris, I don't think needs a safety car, just needs to get a good start and get past those slower midfield cars as soon as possible. As Antonelli has exited Blanchimont, is just going to the bus stop chicane. Pretty quick formation lap, I've got to say. Remember, it's the longest lap on the calendar. And of course, it will be a 44-lap race. Shortest amount of laps, but of course, that is because it is the longest lap of the year. Takes, well, I think in this race, with race fuel on, it'll be about a minute and 48, minute and 49 seconds to do a lap at the quickest around this place. And that's why it's only 44 laps long. As Fernando Alonso has only just exited Blanchimont, he's now coming up to the bus stop chicane. Antonelli and Verstappen already lined up on the front row. So it's going to be a bit of a wait as Alonso comes round the final corner and does some burnouts. So here we go. Can Antonelli get back to the top step, or will Max Verstappen get on the top step for the first time this year? We're about to find out as the green flag waves. And the lights are on. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 lights. And it's go at Spa. And Antonelli has got a good start, but so has Verstappen. Russell is trying to go up the inside, but Verstappen is trying to get a good run on Antonelli out of turn 1, and he does. He pulls ahead of Russell, and yes, he's riding the slipstream. This is exactly what we want, as that is a Ferrari trying to go side by side with Russell, but unable to do so, as a slight drop on the rain on the lens, as Verstappen has already got past Antonelli on the run to Eau Rouge. They're now on the Camel Straight, but Antonelli blasting back past, and a Ferrari round the outside of Lewis Hamilton is up to second. Oh, Russell has been hit by, no, it's Hamilton. So Leclerc's up to second, and Russell, I think, is out of this race. Hamilton has took him off. And Russell I think he's done for, as there's absolute chaos in the midfield. Lando Norris is in the middle of it. But it is Antonelli leading from Leclerc. Verstappen, Piastri is fourth. And then I think is it Lewis Hamilton in fifth? Yes, Hamilton is fifth. And then it's probably Lindblad sixth, Lawson seventh, I think, at the moment. But Russell, we're not seeing him, but I'm pretty sure he's done for. Hamilton surely has got damage. As Verstappen, he was leading the race on the run to just before Eau Rouge, and then by the time he got to Les Combes, he was third. What an incredible start on the Kemmel Straight, as we've got a safety car, and George Russell is out of the Belgian Grand Prix in a massive blow to his championship. And if Antonelli wins today, Russell is going to be not out of the championship, but very nearly out of it. As Ocon, it says Ocon has stopped, but I'm looking at him, unless that's Behrman. Yeah, that's a Haas with quite a lot of damage. Looks like it's to the floor or something like that. But Lewis Hamilton, he stayed on track, but I'm pretty sure I saw a big piece of front wing fly off as Isaac Hadjar has come in behind... Who is that? Behrman. And Hadjar, he's made a pit stop and gone to the medium, so he's got that tyre out of the way. I don't think Hadjar surely is going to go to the end. There's a few cars we've got pitting, but Russell is out of the race. We'll see what happened. But it was the Ferrari of Hamilton that made contact. And that is a crucial moment in the championship. So it is Antonelli leading from Leclerc, Verstappen, Piastri, Hamilton. Lawson is up to sixth. What a start. And I'll do the rest of the order in a moment. As, yeah, Russell is confirmed out of the race. The digger is taking the car away. So we've seen a replay of the start. Max gets a good start, gets a great exit from turn one. And then presumably uses loads more battery, passes Antonelli round the outside on the entry to Eau Rouge. And then Antonelli then uses a bit of battery, gets right in the slipstream and re-overtakes him. And look at Leclerc, he comes out of absolutely nowhere. He was miles behind Verstappen midway through the Kemmel Straight. And yeah, Hamilton collided with Russell, and if there's anyone to blame for that accident, it's Lewis Hamilton. It looks like he has slid wide. And yet Ferrari clearly deploying very well at the perfect point on the Kemmel Straight. And yeah, Lewis Hamilton is going to get a penalty because that was a very clear causing a collision. Hamilton, very clumsy, similar to what he did to Alonso at that corner 4 years ago. Alonso obviously flipping. Or did he flip that time? Or no, he went up in the air. But yeah, Hamilton certainly is going to get a penalty for that. And here's a replay from Carlos Sainz's on board. I think there might have been a bit of contact there as Ocon, this is a replay of him into the Fania chicane, and he colliding with his teammate. Ocon and Behrman colliding. Ocon, his left front tyre colliding with Behrman's right rear. Looked to me to be a bit of a racing incident, to be honest, but yeah, they collided. And Ocon, as Hadjar is pitted again, so he's right. So he's in a race, in a dry race. You've got to use two different compounds, two different types of tyre, and he's done that. So he pitted, put the medium on, did a lap, and then he's gone and put the hard tyre back on. So now he doesn't have to pit again. So that's useful for them. Ocon, by the way, is still going. And Ocon is in 20th place. But yeah, we've got so it's lap 3, we're still under a safety car. Colapinto is 8th. Bortoletto 9th. Norris is 10th. And then you got Gasly 11th. Albon 12th. Hulkenberg 13th. Sainz 14th. Alonso is 15th. So great start for Alonso. He's gained 7 places. Obviously not going to last long when we get going. Stroll 16th. And then Behrman is 17th. And then Perez is in 18th. But unfortunately, because of a glitch with my graphic system, it doesn't allow me to put Perez's name above Ocon. That's something I need to fix, actually. So I will try to fix that probably in the summer break, because that's an issue I've had a couple times now. So I'm going to have to wait until Ocon overtakes Perez. I mean, to be honest, Ocon will overtake Perez and Bottas, so I may as well just leave that the way it is. But so that's your order. So the top 10, Antonelli, Leclerc, Verstappen, Piastri, Hamilton, Lawson, Lindblad, Colapinto, Bortoletto, and Norris. Everyone in the top 10 is on the medium, except for Lando Norris, who's on the hard tyre. This is worked out well to an extent for Norris. He just needs to make sure he gets past the 2 Racing Bulls and the Alpine and the Audi very quickly when we get going. As Hamilton, by the way, he's now under investigation for that collision. But let me just correct the tyres quickly. Safety car ending. Sergio Perez, by the way, pitted. I think both Cadillacs pitted under the safety car. But yeah, Perez is on the soft. And we've got quite a few hard tyre runners down at the bottom there. But yeah, safety car is coming in at the end of this lap. Obviously can't overtake to the start-finish line. And for Antonelli, with the car in between him and Verstappen, he has got to absolutely go for it on this restart. Get on with it. Pull away. Get this race won. Because if he can win, with Hamilton potentially looking at a penalty and very likely not to finish on the podium, and Russell out, this is a massive chance for Antonelli to win the race and take a big step towards winning the championship later this season. As Antonelli has decided quite a bit before Blanchimont to get on with it. As they come up to the bus stop chicane, again, you can't overtake until the start-finish line. So they're all coming through now. And on lap 5, we are back underway. Antonelli leads, Leclerc 2nd, Verstappen 3rd, Piastri 4th, Hamilton 5th, Lawson 6th. Hamilton was in 5th, but he's just gone down the inside of Oscar Piastri at La Source. But Piastri now all over his tail, coming up to Eau Rouge. And Piastri, is he going to overtake Hamilton? Yes, he does on the entry to Eau Rouge. Brilliant. Will Hamilton get him back? Antonelli has already pulled over a second lead. As Lando Norris in the background is side by side with Bortoletto. but he's not going for the overtake as Behrman, lower down, has passed Alonso and Stroll. So Behrman's had a good start as Ocon has dropped to the very back now. And Stroll's actually passed Alonso, so Alonso's not had a good restart. Hadjar is up as well. But Antonelli, as they're just coming through into the Fagnes chicane, he's about a second clear of Leclerc. Can he now build a gap and get on with it? He needs to if he wants to get this race won, as Hadjar has just overtaken Sergio Perez. And Verstappen keeping in third within a second of Leclerc. Leclerc, though, has got himself back within a second of Antonelli. So Antonelli not getting away just yet. As Lando Norris overtakes Bortoleto and he's up to 9th. And it's clear to me with the battery deployment what these teams are doing. They're deploying all of it from the exit of La Source until Les Combes. And then after that, they're just running on empty, basically. As there, we saw Gasly passing Bortoleto. This is Max Verstappen, who's just done the fastest lap. Right in the slipstream with Leclerc. Goes to the outside. Will he get the overtake done? Yes, he does. Very important for Verstappen. He's up to second, back into second. Can he now get after the championship leader, as Bortoleto has got back past Pierre Gasly? So we're on lap 6 of 44, as Alonso is now 20th. So he's had a miserable start or restart, as Isaac Hadjar is now 16th. Sorry, 16th. And all of the top 5 have all got, they're all within a second of the car ahead, except obviously for Antonelli because he's the leader. So they've all got overtake boost. Verstappen, though, losing quite a bit of time on the exit of second Stavolo as Antonelli tries to pull a bit of a gap. As Lando Norris is 9th now on the hard tyre. He's about, though, I think, in a moment to overtake Franco Colapinto for 8th place, as we are on lap 7. As Ocon has passed Stroll. He's about to pass Perez. I've already got him ahead of Perez because, yeah, it's going to happen. As Verstappen, at the end of the Kemmel Straight, just 0.8 of a second behind. So he's got Antonelli right within his sights. And we have got some race on our hands. Not just the fight for the win, but the fight for the podium, as the two Ferraris looking close, and Oscar Piastri right in there. Piastri's not really been in the action this weekend, but he's right in there now, trying to fend off Lewis Hamilton, who I'm sure is going to get a penalty, and trying to keep up with the cars ahead. And yeah, Lando Norris wasn't able to overtake down the Kemmel Straight, so he is in 9th position. Let me just update who is on what tyre lower down the field. So Sainz is on the soft tyre. Behrman, Hadjar and Ocon are on the hard. Perez is on the soft. And then Stroll, Alonso and Bottas are on the hard. And Bottas is actually overtaken Alonso. As Leclerc, they're having to fend off Piastri into the chicane. McLaren are looking good. As we begin lap 8, Max has still got Antonelli within a second. Do not count out Oscar Piastri. Last 2 Belgian Grand Prix, he's been very good. He won last year, and the year before, he was very good and was only a few tenths away from winning in 2024 as he gets a great run on Leclerc through Eau Rouge. Surely, with the Mercedes power unit, he's going to overtake. Leclerc almost squeezes him. And oh, it's so close. Can Piastri go around the outside? Oh, contact and debris flies off. It looked mostly tyre to tyre, but definitely there was carbon fibre that flew off. Probably the McLaren of Piastri. That could have been a much bigger crash, and Leclerc, very lucky he did not get put in the barrier there. Norris, by the way, is overtaking Colapinto. He's up to 8. Norris is not that far behind that fight. Only about 5 seconds. And on the hard tyre. Piastri, though, seems to be fine. As Oscar says, he didn't leave enough space. That could have been a massive crash. Indeed, as we've got a yellow flag. Not sure what for. Probably to clear that debris up that fell off Piastri's car. I need to see a replay to see if Leclerc squeezed Piastri. We have seen penalties as the yellow flag has gone away. We've seen penalties for that before. I remember Perez got a penalty for that in 2013, which was very harsh at the time, for squeezing Grosjean to the curb. So it's possible that Leclerc could be in trouble there. But Piastri's keeping with him. Ferrari had a great start, but kind of like what we saw in Austria, their pace is not good. I mean, they're in a podium position, but they really feel like they're falling backwards. As Piastri is keeping right within a second of Leclerc. Antonelli is now pulled over a second clear of Verstappen. That's crucial. As Hamilton uses the overtake and overtakes Oscar Piastri. Just as I say, Ferrari feels like they're going backwards. They go forwards. Hamilton up to 4th. 3rd and 4th now for Ferrari. Hamilton, though, still under investigation. I'll let you know the result of that. Here's a replay. So Piastri, he was still on the track, Piastri. Yeah, I think that's okay. It was on the limit at worst. It was okay. He wasn't pushed off the track. And Piastri also, when they hit the brakes, he wasn't at least fully alongside Leclerc. So, yeah, I think that's just about okay. But it looked like Piastri lost a bit of, was it barge board or front wing? So that really could scupper his chances of a result today. As this is Lando Norris overtaking not Arvid Lindblad. Lindblad has passed Lawson somewhere. Norris is now up to P7 on lap 10 of 44. We're not too far away from pit stops. Probably another 7 or 8 laps, I'd imagine. But Norris is only about 5-6 seconds behind that fight between the Ferraris and Piastri. So he's right in play, especially on that tyre. As Hamilton closing in on Leclerc, and Hamilton has been given a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision. And yeah, that is, I mean, him getting a penalty is the right decision, but I think 5 seconds is quite kind. I think he should have had at least a 10-second penalty there. Because I mean, I know you can't give punishment because of what happened necessarily to Russell, but he's eliminated a car from the race there. So I'm not sure that's the most fair punishment, but he at least has got some sort of penalty, which again he absolutely deserves for that collision. Lower down the order, Valtteri Bottas is now 19th, so both Cadillacs are now ahead of both Aston Martins and comfortably. As Max Verstappen, now he's fallen over a second behind Antonelli. He's now falling into the clutches of the Ferraris and Piastri. Now got Leclerc and Hamilton and Piastri all over the back of him. So starting to develop into a fight for second, third, fourth, and fifth now, as Antonelli continues to pull away. He's now nearly 2 seconds clear, pretty much now 2 seconds clear on lap 11 of Verstappen. Antonelli doing exactly what he needs if he's going to win this race, as Leclerc closes in into Les Combes, but Verstappen still about 2 or 3 tenths further ahead, as Piastri being told, we have some damage to the right-hand side forward floor. It's not big. We're still in the race. It's going to cost Piastri lap time, but probably not too much. So he's still in the fight, as Norris is now stuck behind Lindblad. Got to be honest, I thought Norris would get through the pack quicker than this, as Hadjar has just overtaken Carlos Sainz for 14th. Remember, Hadjar is probably going to try and go to the end, as Piastri and Leclerc incident under investigation. I think Leclerc might get a penalty with that. If they feel it's enough for an investigation, I think Leclerc might be in trouble. I don't know the exact rules in terms of leaving a gap on the outside like that, but personally, if I was making the rules, I would leave that. I don't think that's enough to be a penalty. I don't think he squeezed him enough for that to be any sort of penalty. But, well, both Ferrari drivers could end up having penalties. Of course, they will serve them at their pit stop if Leclerc gets one, as Hamilton gets a good exit from La Source on lap 12. And he's right in the slipstream of his teammate, but Leclerc has got the boost from ahead. But Hamilton looking so much quicker. Can he get through? It's so close. Hamilton almost touching the rear tyre. Leclerc, he's holding the middle. Will Hamilton go to the outside? No. That was very close. Hamilton almost did what Piastri did there and got squeezed out, as Norris has now overtaken Lindblad, just as Nico Hülkenberg has overtaken Alex Albon for 12th. So Norris up to 6th, Hülkenberg up to 12th. Hadjar has passed Albon as well, so Albon really falling down. But the two highest placed hard tyre runners are Hadjar and Norris. Norris being the highest placed one, he is in 6th. And let me just update that Norris on the hard. So now he's got through the midfield teams. For lap 12, or I reckon Lando's got at least another 15 laps until he pits. He's 7 seconds behind Piastri. And he's what? Probably 10 or 11 seconds off the lead. So it's all about what lap times can he do. I think, fighting for the win, I don't think is really possible. But I think if he can set some good lap times these next few laps before these lot pit, he might be right on for a podium. Do not count out Lando Norris. He's been really good all weekend. As Leclerc has now fallen over a second behind Verstappen, that puts Lewis Hamilton in a great position as he gets into the slipstream. Leclerc moves to the inside, Hamilton to the outside. And again, getting really close there. But Leclerc keeps the position. Good, hard racing. between the two. As Antonelli is maintaining about a 2-second lead to Verstappen, as Hadjar has just passed Hulkenberg. Next target is Bortoleto, who is 3.5 seconds up the road. Lewis saying, I'm quicker than Charles, I've got more pace. At the minute, that looks clear to see. But I think they're going to wait and see what the result of this investigation is. Because if Leclerc doesn't get a penalty, then I don't think they're going to let Hamilton through. But if Leclerc does, I think they probably will let Lewis go through. As Lando Norris, by the way, is lapping quicker than Oscar Piastri. He's starting to close the gap to him. Gap was 7.2. It's now about 6.5 seconds. So Lando Norris, he's doing good lap times. Watch out for him. He's in a really good position there in 6th on that hard tyre. That's the top 10 on lap 14. Only got 30 laps to go. Antonelli leads by about 2 seconds. Verstappen 2nd. Leclerc 3rd. Hamilton 4th with a 5-second penalty. Piastri 5th. Norris 6th. Lindblad 7th. Lawson 8th. Gasly 9th. Colapinto 10th. So Gasly's overtaken Colapinto somewhere. Racing Bulls don't seem quite as quick as they were yesterday. Alpine are right in there with them, as Hamilton quite a bit further back now compared to Leclerc. Bortoleto is right in the slipstream of Colapinto, so good fight going on towards the back end of the top 10 and just outside of the top 10. As Oliver Behrman has overtaken Carlos Sainz. Sergio Perez has pitted. So, let me just update that. And Alonso has got ahead of Stroll. So Perez is now on the hard compound tyre. Actually, Perez, I think, yeah, he's got a problem. It says, he just said on the radio, I think my suspension is broken. I was going to say, if he's had a pit stop, it was very slow because he's now nearly 40 seconds behind Lance Stroll. So he is, I think, done for, sadly, is Sergio Perez. As Leclerc still keeping just about within a second of Max Verstappen. Verstappen, though, even though he's fallen out of that overtake boost range that you have to be within a second to get the overtake boost on a car ahead. He's still keeping Antonelli only 2 seconds ahead, so that he's got Antonelli in undercut range. So this fight for the win, it's not quite over yet. Antonelli still needs to pull another couple seconds on Max if he's gonna cover that off, as Gasly has pitted, quite early pit stop. And so is Carlos Sainz. That's understandable. He started on the soft compound tyre. Here comes Gasly. He puts on the hard tyre. Hard tyre's working well. Remember I told you Lando Norris was only 6.5 seconds behind Piastri. It's now 5 seconds. He's gained a 1.5 seconds in the last 2 laps. As Hadjar passes Bortoleto. So Hadjar now into 10th with Gasly's pit stop. Carlos Sainz is now in 19th place. Sergio Perez, I'm pretty sure, is now out of the race. So, Sainz saying, I didn't approve the front wing change, but anyway, the front wing was fine. It's the floor, so looks like they replaced the front wing there. But yeah, Sergio Perez, the second retirement, unfortunately. Isaac Hadjar is now, 10th. And he's on the hard tyre, not the medium. As we're on lap 16, Verstappen lapping about the same pace as Antonelli still. Gap still about 2 seconds. It is Slowly creeping up, though, to 2.5 seconds. As Gasly has come out from his pit stop in 15th place. On the hard tyre is Lawson and Colapinto reacting to Gasly's pit stop, and they've pitted, so Hadjar is now up to 8th place. Hadjar is looking good for 8th, or no, 7th in this race with Russell out. The Hadjar looking good there for a few points. As Lando Norris is now just under 4 seconds behind Piastri. He's catching very quickly. Norris, he's not lapping much slower than the leader. At this rate, if he keeps lapping this way, and if he starts to close in on Antonelli, I think Lando Norris very well might be a contender to win this race. Keep your eyes out for him. He is doing really well. So yeah, Lawson and Colapinto pitted. Gasly has come out ahead of Colapinto. He was ahead of him anyway. So Colapinto is now 16th. Lawson has kept position, though, ahead of Gasly. So no one's lost any track position there in that little fight. So Hadjar in 8th on the hard tyre. Lindblad, though, I'm sure is about to pit to cover off Lawson and, you know, the cars behind. But now everybody below 11th place is on the hard compound tyre. So I will get to correcting that, and also correct that we are on lap 17. As yeah, Lindblad does pit. Will he cover off Lawson? That is the question. As Antonelli's got the gap to nearly 3 seconds. He's getting there. Needs another 1.5 seconds. If he gets up to 4 seconds, he's comfortable and safe. Will he come out ahead of Lawson? Lawson into turn 1. I think Lawson's got it done, has he? No. Lindblad has just come out ahead, but it's going to be really close. I think they're side by side. We really should be watching it, but Lawson has got back ahead. So thanks, Mr. TV Director. Could have seen that fight, and now Lindblad has got back ahead as Antonelli being told your tyres look good. As one of the racing balls goes off. They're still side by side. We've got to see a replay of that. Why didn't we see it, though? They're still side by side. There's been a bit of tetchiness between these two after what happened in Austria, where Lawson was unhappy about being undercut by Lindblad. That was the team's fault, not Lindblad's fault, but they've clearly just had a massive battle and we haven't seen almost any of it. So cheers again. I've got to say, this year, the TV direction has been absolutely rubbish. We need to be seeing actual battles, not just cars touring around. As Max Verstappen comes in on lap 18 and puts on the hard tyres, and good pit stop, 2.5 seconds. And surely Antonelli will have to respond, because the gap was only about 2.5 seconds. Verstappen will come out in between Norris and Hadjar. And Verstappen has 10 seconds of clear air in front of him, so no issues regarding traffic. But, so Lindblad is 12th. And he has maintained position over Lawson, but I want to see a replay. Still haven't seen a replay. It's an absolute joke. As all virtual safety car. As Hamilton saying, why the hell I told you what strategy I wanted to do. You just put me out with everyone else now. And Hamilton being told we're on plan B. That will be... he's on plan B because of the penalty. So he can moan all he wants, but that's why they've done it. Why have we got a virtual safety car? Now it's ending. Must be some debris on track. It can't be for stones. As Antonelli is now... He's on the run to the bus stop, so it won't affect anything. Lando Norris, though, look, he's now right up behind Oscar Piastri. So Piastri's got to let him through. He's so much quicker, Lando. As Antonelli, bit of a skid on the exit of the pits. Max will be closer to him, but I think Antonelli should still maintain position. And yeah, Max is coming down the pit straight, but Antonelli holds on. So it is now a Ferrari 1-2 and then a McLaren 3-4. Antonelli 5th, Verstappen 6th, but still it is a first and second in reality. So the top 3 are on the medium. Lando Norris is on the hard. Norris is still behind Piastri. They've got to tell Oscar to move out the way. They've got to. It's completely destroying Lando's race. Norris needs fresh, clean air. He's getting none of it. They can't make this strategy work if they keep Oscar ahead. They've got to get Lando ahead. Surely Oscar has got to be told to move out of the way. The gap, by the way, between Antonelli and Verstappen is about what it was when they pitted, or when Max pitted. So Max, in reality, hasn't gained anything. Surely Lando's on the radio, just like, come on, guys. Tell him to let me through. He's all over the back of him. He's so slow at the minute, Piastri. He's probably going to get overtaken anyway. And yeah, Lando goes through. But that is a lap and a half they've wasted, quite frankly. Oscar should have let him through. Lando is miles quicker with a fully healthy car on better tyres. And they wasted a lap and a half there. That's Hamilton being told why they're going longer. And Lewis complaining that he's got a 5-second penalty. Well, don't crash into people then. But on lap 20, Ferrari 1-2. So Ferrari are going to go longer here. Max Verstappen's done the fastest lap. As Piastri has just re-overtaken Norris. Has Norris got an issue? Why would Piastri re-overtake him? And so Piastri's used his boost and then... What are McLaren doing? Lando is clearly quicker. What are they doing? Now we've got another virtual safety car. Why? What is going on? Is there debris on track? Or are they just... Like, what is going on? Right, well, they've cleared some sort of debris. Now the VSC needs to end, because if it doesn't, Leclerc is going to be able to pit and come out in the lead, which is really quite unfair. As, yeah, Leclerc's being told to box, and yeah, so... Really? A virtual safety car for a small bit of debris like that? Come on, honestly. I really think this race has just been ruined. And now Leclerc's going to pit and come out in the lead when he doesn't deserve to. And Hamilton pits as well. Hamilton will have to serve his penalty. Piastri pits. Lando needs to stay out. But that is rotten luck if you are Antonelli. Absolutely rotten luck. Has he come out ahead of Leclerc? No, he hasn't. So Leclerc now leads the race. Not officially. Lando Norris leads the race officially. But, I mean, really? A virtual safety car for a tiny bit of debris? Come on. Honestly, that just feels like bullshit to me. And, you know, it's not because I don't want Ferrari to win or Leclerc to win. Don't care about that. It's just Leclerc is now in the net lead and he hasn't earned it at all. So Antonelli has now got to get on with it and get past Leclerc. He shouldn't have too much trouble doing that because the Mercedes is quicker and Antonelli is quicker. So shouldn't be too hard. As oh my, I don't think we saw that live. Wow. I cannot believe what I've just seen. Lewis Hamilton. So they did the pit stop. It went green. He released, and a mechanic got in the way of his tyre and nearly got run over. Wow, that was so close. That was nearly horrific. Nearly ran over his head. What was the mechanic? Did he think that the tyre wasn't done up properly? I have no idea, but for some reason he just fell into the path of his front right tyre. So, yeah, I don't have a clue what went on there. I'd love to see another replay of that, but that looked like that was a near-death experience. As we're now on lap 22. We're now halfway through this Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is now closing on Lando Norris. Lando Norris has not pitted yet. Should they have pitted Lando? Maybe, but I mean, would he be able to get mediums to do another half of the race? I'm not sure. But let me just correct the order quickly because it's all over the place. So Norris is leading, hasn't pitted yet. Leclerc is the real leader. Antonelli is third. Verstappen fourth. Piastri fifth. Hamilton, after his served penalty, is now sixth, but a net fifth. And then Hadjar seventh, as Hulkenberg trying to overtake Lawson for 10th place. Audi are actually looking pretty quick at the minute. Bortoletto 8th, Lindblad 9th, Lawson 10th, and then Hulkenberg 11th, Gasly 12th, Colapinto 13th, Albon 14th, and then Behrman, Ocon 15th and 16th, Carlos Sainz 17th, Bottas 18th, Alonso 19th, Stroll 20th, and then, Perez and Russell out of the race. The one thing to remember is, yes, the Mercedes is quicker, but Leclerc stayed out an extra, couple laps, so he's got the fresher, better tyres. What Antonelli needs is for Norris to hold Leclerc up for as long as possible. But I'm not sure how long Norris can do that. And I think on the Kemmel Straight, we're about to see Leclerc blast past the McLaren. And here we go. And yeah, he does. So Charles Leclerc, the winner of the last Grand Prix, now leads the race. Lando Norris second. Norris is not a net second. He hasn't pitted yet. Antonelli's just on the fastest lap. Antonelli about 2 seconds away from Leclerc. Antonelli has got to give it everything in these final 20 laps if he's going to win this race. Leclerc's leading, not deservedly. He absolutely not deservedly, to be honest. But he is in the lead regardless. As that is Gasly trying to overtake Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg, I don't think, has pitted yet. Audi are going for the long strategy by the looks of it. Unless Bortoletto pitted under the virtual safety car. If he did, then he's jumped both Racing Bull cars. That's massive for him. But can he keep ahead? But let's update who's on what tyre now. So every single driver is on the hard compound tyre, except for the 2 Aston Martins, who are on the soft. So let me just correct that. As we're on lap 24, I'll update that in a second. Let me just do these tyres. As Antonelli is now within a second of Norris. He's got to get past Norris as soon as possible, but Leclerc is starting to pull away. As we've got 20 laps to go. As you guys know, I'm not sat here supporting any particular driver, but I really don't like seeing drivers get into the lead or win races when they really don't deserve to. And Leclerc absolutely does not deserve to be in the lead of this race. He's driving well, he's performing well, no doubt about it, but Antonelli has been, driving so brilliantly this weekend, and once again, he now finds himself on the back foot through no fault of his own. I don't want to hear anything about how much unluckier Russell is compared to Antonelli, because Antonelli has had such rotten luck in these last few races. As Hamilton on the radio saying, fuck yeah, I can't turn the car, so... And right before that message, he asked if they put any front wing in, any turns of front wing in, and they said they didn't manage to. That might be what that mechanic was doing. Maybe he remembered, oh yeah, he wanted front wing, and then Hamilton set off and nearly killed him. So, yeah. But Lando Norris is about to be overtaken by Antonelli. Interestingly, Max Verstappen is really nowhere to be seen at the minute. He's in 4th. He's now 4 seconds behind Antonelli, and Oscar Piastri is now only a second behind him. So Verstappen has just dropped off the pace massively out of nowhere. As Antonelli, has he got the overtake boost to overtake? He's closing. Norris defends the inside and keeps the position, exactly what Antonelli didn't need. But Norris goes wide. Can Antonelli get a switch back on the fresher tyres to get a better run and get through? No, he can't. And this is going to cost Antonelli a lap where he could be catching Leclerc. And investigation after the race for an unsafe release. I'm not sure what happened there with Hamilton. I'd have to see a replay. But at the minute, it looks like Lewis Hamilton is pretty destined to finish in 6th place, which obviously for the championship is not good. Charles Leclerc, though, looking brilliant for him. And if he does go on to win this race, maybe you can start to look at him as a championship contender, especially if he's now starting to get some fortune go his way. Something that he doesn't tend to get going his way. He tends to be one of the unluckier drivers in Formula 1. But Antonelli has got to overtake Norris on this lap 26. Must overtake him. As I think, in regards to debris, I think it probably has fallen off Liam Lawson's car, because he's fallen to almost 10 seconds behind Lindblad after like a few laps, and he's got 3 cars all over the back of him, so I think Lawson's got damaged. We did see that Lawson went off the track trying to defend as Antonelli overtakes Norris. So Antonelli up to 2nd, and he has no cars now in between him and Leclerc. 2.8 seconds behind. Can he go after Leclerc and get the win. That's what this race is all about, as Gasly overtakes Hulkenberg for 11th. And for Norris, that virtual safety car really was bad for him because he was looking in such good shape. As Hulkenberg now trying to repass Pierre Gasly. And, close racing into Lecon, but Gasly keeps the position. So Gasly clearly passing him into La Source or on the exit of the first corner. So Gasly keeps ahead. But if it wasn't for that virtual safety car, I think Lando Norris was in a position to finish possibly even in second place in this race. But now, if he can finish in the top 5 at this point, I think that'd be a good result for him, as that's Alonso going slow, letting all the cars through. So Aston Martin already lapped, and we're only just past half distance on lap 27. But Leclerc, he has a great position, not just because obviously he's leading, but he has the freshest tyres of anyone in the top 4. So tyre-wise, he's in the best condition possible. It's all about, has Antonelli got any pace to reverse that slight tyre advantage to win this race, as Piastri is now right on the gearbox of Max Verstappen. Antonelli, though, is getting that gap down slowly but surely, as Max saying the tyres don't work. So that's clearly what's going on with him. Tyres just not working for him, as Lance Stroll, I think, has retired from the race. And yeah, he has. He's parked in the garage. So that was, I think that's probably what that Aston Martin was. It was probably him parking it up. So 3 retirements now. And only 19 of the 22 remain. But we've got a few different fights still going on. So you've got Leclerc and Antonelli for the win. Verstappen, Piastri, and Norris, I would say, fighting for third. Norris hasn't pitted yet, but once he comes back later in the race on fresh tyres, he's going to have some really good pace. So don't count him out just yet. And then in the midfield, we've got an absolutely mammoth fight from Lawson 10th down to Colapinto 13th. 4 cars fighting for the final point. As Bortoletto, still in 8th, clearly pitted on a virtual safety car, and that's how he gained that position. Lindblad, though, is gaining on him by quite a bit. So Lindblad, I think, eventually will get that 8th place. And as it stands, Racing Bulls will overtake Alpine in the championship. Audi, though, if they can score 4 points, that would put them only a point behind Williams. They've got to get ahead of Williams in the championship. Cannot afford to finish behind them this season. Williams' car is miles off the pace generally, and just miles behind Audi. I mean, currently, the highest place Williams is 15th, and Albon is over half a minute behind Bortoletto. And we're on lap 28, so Williams are losing over a second a lap just to Audi, never mind the rest. As we are on lap 28, I think I made a mistake. I forgot to update the lap there. As Max Verstappen now right within a second of Lando Norris. What's Norris going to do, though? Is he going to let them overtake him and then pit, or is he going to pit? Not going to pit yet, but he's going to pit soon. He's next couple laps or so, really, he needs to pit. He's got a 15-second gap to Isaac Hadjar. Is that enough? Not sure it is. But Hadjar is on, I think, fresher tyres. So I think Lando really should be coming in at the end of this lap. Don't know why he didn't pit then, to be honest. Antonelli out front. He's got the gap down to 2.2 seconds as Verstappen round the outside of Lando Norris, but he goes wide. And Norris, can he cut back underneath? No, he can't. Verstappen just about keeps it. And Max Verstappen is in to third place. Verstappen, at this rate, unfortunately, Max just doesn't have, or not Max, but the Red Bull just doesn't have the pace to fight for the win, unfortunately. So as long as Max can finish third, then that would be good enough. Oscar Piastri, though, after a wacky first stint and having the damage, he's now in much better condition. Piastri, don't count him out for a podium. Be a great result considering he's been largely distant this weekend, as that was Alonso letting Verstappen, Norris and Piastri through. So the sole Aston Martin remaining a lap down. Valtteri Bottas in the Cadillac might be able to get to the end without being lapped. That'd be good for Cadillac if that happened. They could end up on the lead lap as that's Piastri going deep a bit at the bus stop. That wasn't great. But yeah, if Cadillac can end up on the lead lap, that would be brilliant. That would show progress. Because they've been lapped in every race, as you would expect so far. As Behrman, I forgot to update, is up to 14th. And then Carlos Sainz is 16th. So 15th and 16th the Williams, and Haas are 14th and 17th. As Antonelli now, gap is down to 1.7. Leclerc leading, Antonelli second. And at this rate, I think Antonelli's going to get him. But it's just like Silverstone, isn't it? He's catching him very quickly. Can he actually have the chance to overtake him? And can he keep it all together? I mean, obviously, Silverstone, that was a freak issue he had. As Pierre Gasly has just overtaken Liam Lawson. But let me just wait a second, because now Lawson, he's going around the outside of the exit of Radior. And he's got it back as they're side by side down the Kemmel Straight. Well, Lawson got the inside. Oh, look at that! Colapinto's come out of nowhere. When he did the Hakkinen, Colapinto. That was brilliant. As Lawson gets ahead of Gasly. Colapinto just did the Hakkinen move. Lawson and Gasly were fighting and Colapinto went up the inside of both of them. That was absolutely brilliant from Franco Colapinto, who really is having a great season now. And good to see, because he's a great guy. And I think clearly he's proven now that he is truly good enough to be in Formula One, as Lando Norris finally pits. Lap 31. And, that's a slow stop. 7.8. That's him done for. He's not getting the podium from there. Absolutely no way, unless there's a safety car. So Lando and he's even now behind Bortoletto because of that. What a shame. I'm going to keep him ahead of Bortoletto in the order, though, for me, because he's going to overtake him very quickly. Antonelli out front, 1.3 seconds behind Leclerc, so he's going to get him. So Lando Norris very soon will go up to 7th place, but he's now over 10 seconds behind Hadjar. So to be honest, I think Norris is probably going to finish in 7th. Be a good result for Hadjar, though. Top 6, despite starting 21st. Leclerc saying on the radio, the first to second gear is so bad. Out of 1, it's so bad, so harsh. Having some gear issues there. But that was, I really hope we see a replay of that Colapinto move, because he did the Hakkinen. It was, I think that might be one of the best overtakes of the season right there. But we're now seeing Lando Norris. Yeah, is about to overtake. As Antonelli. Is he within a second? I don't think quite yet. But as we've seen this season, when the Mercedes gets within a second of the car ahead with the overtake boost, especially on that Ferrari, it's game over. So, and yeah, he's pretty much within a second now as they exit the Kemmel Straight and into Les Combes. So, in the next couple laps, I think Antonelli is going to take the lead, deservedly, of this Belgian Grand Prix. As Norris closely following Bortoleto through Rouge and Radion, and now easily passes him. Bortoleto, though, 3 seconds clear of Lindblad. If Bortoleto can hang on to 8th, that would be a massive result for Audi. As we're now on board with the Italian, the championship leader. Lewis Hamilton is 5th. George Russell is out of the race. And this is a massive chance for Antonelli to take a big leap towards a first world championship. If he wins and Hamilton finishes 5th, and with Russell out, he'll be 47 points clear of Hamilton and 50 points clear of Russell. That's the type of gap he needs coming out of this race. And this very well could be, if he wins it, obviously a long way to go yet. We're still going to get past Leclerc, who's a top driver. But if he can win this race, this would be by far the biggest win and the biggest step towards winning the championship. He's now within a second, just 7 tenths behind, onto the Kemmel Straight. He'll use the overtake boost. He'll close in, but he doesn't close in enough. But he is much closer now, as we've got just over 10 laps remaining. Who will win at Spa? Will it be Ferrari or Mercedes? Will it be Leclerc or Antonelli? We're about to find out. As Alonso is pitted, I'll let you know if he's retiring or not. Wouldn't be surprised if they retired from the race just so they can get packed up early and throw away this car, because obviously next week the B car will be in town. As Antonelli being told about Leclerc squeezing cars on the outside of turn 5. Alonso has come back out, so he's going to go to the finish. But he's put the hard tyre on. As Gasly passes Lawson, so 10th and 11th now for Alpine. And surely as he exit the bus stop, this is inevitable. Lap 34, just over 10 laps to go. Antonelli gets a brilliant exit from La Source, and I don't think there's anything really that Charles Leclerc can do. Even with 2 lap fresher tyres, Antonelli in that Mercedes is just too quick. And here we go. Defense to the inside, Antonelli round the outside. And Kimi Antonelli retakes the lead of the Belgian Grand Prix. And it is thoroughly deserved. He's been the best driver this weekend. Mercedes have been the best team. And with the form Antonelli is in, despite all the bad luck he's had, he just can't be stopped. But can he now get it to the finish? That's now the what Mercedes will be hyper-focused on because they have had quite poor reliability, especially with their battery system and their engine in the last few races, not just with themselves, but their customers. Leclerc desperately trying to hang on, and he has kept within a second of Antonelli, but for how much longer can he keep within a second? We'll have to see. Antonelli is the only reason Leclerc's closing in is because Antonelli can see the flashing light at the back. That means that he's charging the battery. But yeah, Antonelli begins lap 35 as the new leader. Will it remain permanent? They exit La Source. This is where Antonelli surely's got to use all his battery to pull the gap. Now, a 1:49.3 is the fastest lap by Antonelli. And yeah, he has checked out. I don't think Leclerc can hang with him. And, if you're a Ferrari fan, you've got to admit, Ferrari just were not quick enough today. As Lewis Hamilton has closed in very quickly on Piastri and Verstappen. Quite far behind not that long ago, and now he's only 2.5 seconds behind Piastri. And Piastri's still about 1.8 behind, now 2 seconds behind Verstappen. So don't count out Lewis Hamilton just yet for the podium. But, yeah, Ferrari just don't have the pace this weekend to beat Mercedes. Even with 2-lap fresher tyres, Antonelli has closed in and took the lead. So if Ferrari can finish second with Leclerc, that is a good result because that's the best they can get unless Kimi has an issue. Lewis Hamilton and his 5-second penalty. Without that 5-second penalty, Hamilton would currently be in third. So, when you eliminate the penalty damage, second and third is what they would have got. That's a good result. Can't win every race, especially when you just don't fundamentally have the pace. Antonelli has still got Leclerc within a second of him, but it's mainly because Leclerc is just abusing his battery to try and keep up. As we're on lap 36 of 44. We've still got that fight for the final point. Colapinto is a 1.5 clear of Pierre Gasly. Lawson within a second, and Hulkenberg is just 4/10 behind Lawson. So still fighting going on there. As Valtteri Bottas, let me just update that he is he's pitted. He's now on the soft compound tyre. So Bottas, I think, is sadly now a lap down. But at least they have got a car to win the race, and they're probably going to finish. Lando Norris now does the fastest lap, a 1:49.1. That is a very quick lap time. But he's 7.5 seconds behind Hadjar with, 8 laps to go? I'm not sure he's got enough pace to catch. As Lewis Hamilton is now just 2 seconds behind Piastri. So, again, do not count out Hamilton. Hamilton is just under 4.5 seconds off the podium. And Ferrari, you'd have to say, are quicker than Red Bull in this race. So if Hamilton keeps up this pace, podium is not impossible. And if Hamilton can get on the podium, then at least for his championship, that's still a good result, given what's happened today. As Antonelli has still got Leclerc keeping up with him, but once Antonelli gets the gap over a second, Leclerc will fall away. I have no doubt about it. Antonelli, I reckon, is just saving up, mostly. Conserving. And really, Antonelli, where he's using the battery, is on the exit of La Source. And then, obviously, down the Camel Straight, like most people will be. Another fight to look out for. Bortoletto in 8th. Just 2 seconds clear now of Lindblad. That's going to be a close fight that will go down to the checkered flag. And those are important points. Especially with Alpine now in the points. Racing Bulls need every point they can get if they're going to beat Alpine this season to 5th. And I think pretty clearly at this point, the battle for 5th in the championship is between Alpine and Racing Bulls. No one else can get near. Even if Audi improve their car, they're just too far behind. Points-wise, I think. But Leclerc still keeping with Antonelli. Antonelli can't quite shake him off just yet. Leclerc, this is the Leclerc we want to see. This is him back right in the form that we want to see him in. As Lewis Hamilton is now just 1.1 seconds behind Piastri. Hamilton, a few laps after his pit stop, was not really anywhere, and now suddenly he's come alive. And he is still catching Verstappen as well. He's now under 4 seconds behind Verstappen. So if he gets past Piastri quickly, he might be able to get Verstappen before the end. Lap 38. Antonelli is very close to getting over a second clear now of Leclerc, which would pretty much end Leclerc's hopes, because Leclerc at that point, once you're over a second behind, you can't get overtake boost. And I think he's now just achieved that. So Antonelli should now be able to pull away. But now the fight, and what we're really looking at is, can Lewis Hamilton finish on the podium? Something that might be very important for the championship. Antonelli might win today and extend his gap by quite a bit over Hamilton. But if Hamilton can get on the podium, keeps him still close enough. And remember, next week in Hungary, Ferrari, you'd imagine, will be very much contenders for victory. So, and Hungary, we know, is Lewis's best track. I think pretty much everyone's in agreement with that. That's Hamilton now within a second of Piastri, so I reckon Hamilton will get this move done. The Ferrari is definitely quick enough at this stage to get past. Lando Norris, only 5 seconds behind Hadjar. That's going to still be close towards the end. And yeah, Antonelli now 1.3 clear. So Antonelli has got Leclerc covered on lap now 39. We have got just over 5 laps to go. Make sure, guys, to let me know who you think driver of the day is. I will set that poll up in the chat right after the end of the race. So not long, another probably 10 minutes or so, and I'll set that poll up. As Hamilton through Eau Rouge over Radiot. He's right in the slipstream of Piastri, but I don't think he's got a good enough run on him. Oh, no, he has. He's using the boost. Piastri defends to the inside, but Hamilton just didn't have enough momentum around the outside to go round Piastri there, but he is really in his wheel tracks now. But if he's going to get on the podium, he really needs to get past at the on the next lap, because if he doesn't, then I think Max probably has got enough to get up the podium, as Leclerc being told engine braking +1, it's not over. They're trying to race Mercedes into braking. They know that they are more reliable than Mercedes. And when you know you're more reliable than another team, that's definitely an advantage. Not just in terms of results, but mentally. If you can push harder on your engine, knowing that the other team with a different engine is more prone to break down, it gives you much more belief that you can still come out on top And on lap 40, Leclerc is still only just 1.3 behind. So he's still going to push on to the very end. As Lewis Hamilton now into La Source. Yeah, he's going to get past Piastri. 100%. They exit La Source. Hamilton gets a decent exit. And surely, when they get down the Camel Straight, he will fly past the McLaren. Piastri has pulled away a bit through Eau Rouge, but now Hamilton with the boost starts to gain. Piastri defends to the inside. Hamilton round the outside. Brilliant move. And Lewis Hamilton is up to fourth with an absolutely magnificent overtake. And can he now finish third? It may well be very important for his championship. Piastri, he's had a much more eventful race today than I expected, but yeah, just hasn't been quick this weekend as Oscar. It's annoying from his perspective, because if he had the same pace Lando's had this weekend, he'd probably be right there with Verstappen fighting for third, but yeah, he's just not been quick this weekend. But at least he will get 10 points from this race, at least. And that will put him only, I think, just over 10 points behind his teammates. So it still keeps him close to Norris. And he, as it stands, he will keep ahead of Max Verstappen in the championship, who will be just a point behind him if it finishes the way it is now. Lindblad still about 2 seconds behind Bortoletto. I think Bortoletto is doing and has probably just done about enough to keep 8th. What a result that will be for Audi. 2 points finishes in a row. They're getting there. Give them time. They're getting there. As Lando Norris, fastest lap, 1:49.0. Another blistering lap, and he's only 2.8 seconds behind Hadjar. He might just get him, you know. Might just get that 6th place. As out front, Antonelli's still about 1.3, 1.4 seconds ahead. Antonelli, though, I'm pretty sure is managing to a degree, because Mercedes know the reliability problems they've got and they don't want to risk anything. Verstappen in third. Verstappen just over 10 seconds off the lead. Just hasn't had any pace since the pit stop. And now he's got Lewis Hamilton closing him down. Can Hamilton get at least 1 or 2 chances to overtake Verstappen? He's 3.5 seconds behind. He is closing, but I'm not sure if he's closing quickly enough, as the final point is being contested still between Colapinto, Gasly, Lawson, Hulkenberg. What a fight those 4 have had, and we've barely seen any of it, unfortunately. I'll have to wait until after the race to see a replay of that move that Colapinto made. It was a magnificent one. As that's an Aston Martin of Alonso, just ahead of these two, Antonelli and Leclerc. And Alonso lets Kimi through, and Leclerc is now just over 2 seconds behind. So Leclerc, yeah, he's really now falling away. As Norris, now just 2 seconds behind Hadjar, now 1.8. Hamilton not really gained enough in the last lap or so, so I think Max has got third locked down. So I'd say that the final fight to look out for is who will finish in the last points position. And who will finish 6th and 7th, and also 8th and 9th, because Lindblad has now got the gap down to 1.8 seconds. He's not giving up, nor should he. As Throw Rouge, we're on board with Lawson in the mini box that they have in the left-hand side. And yeah, Colapinto doing a great job. If Colapinto finishes 12th, he's got to be one of the drivers of the day, because wasn't really doing much in qualifying, but brilliant overtake has got him into P10. And if he can hold off his teammate, who has been quicker this weekend, and Lawson in the Racing Bulls, who does have damage, but is still lapping quickly, then that would be brilliant. We're on the penultimate lap, though. Antonelli now 2.5 seconds clear. Surely the win is his. As Lando Norris now just 1.5 seconds behind Hadjar. It's going to come down to the final lap for Lando as to whether he gets 6th place. And another blistering fastest lap. 1:48.9. That is so quick. As Lewis says on the radio, I've done the best I can with the wing that I have. So he's given up the ghost. Leclerc, I think, pretty much has given up as well. He knows he can't win this race unless Antonelli has a problem in these final lap and a quarter. As Kimi Antonelli brakes hard for the bus stop chicane. And now begins the final lap of the Belgian Grand Prix. With Hamilton in 4th and Russell out, this is going to be a massive race win. I said he had to win this race, and he's deserved it. Leclerc, the only reason Leclerc got into the fight was because he got very lucky with a virtual safety car. Antonelli has been the class of the field the whole weekend. He was in Austria up until qualifying. He was denied by a freak issue at Silverstone the win there. But he's going to get the win at Spa, a racetrack where legends have won many times, and Kimi is about to etch his name onto that trophy. Another man named Kimi won this race plenty of times, and I'm pretty sure this one will win this one plenty of times as well, especially given the scary fact that he is nowhere near his prime as of yet. As Antonelli coming round the final 2 Stavelos. And despite the bad luck he's had in the last few races since his last win in Monaco, he had to win this Grand Prix. And with results elsewhere going his way, this is one giant leap for a world championship. Kimi Antonelli wins the Belgian Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc finishes 2nd. Max Verstappen finishes 3rd. Lewis Hamilton finishes 4th. Piastri 5th. Hadjar has held on for 6th. Lando Norris 7th. Gabriel Bortoleto, brilliant drive all weekend, and he's finished 8th. Lindblad 9th. Colapinto should finish in P10. Sorry I didn't update that it was the final lap on the screen. But, yeah. The race has come to an end. And Antonelli, first win since Monaco. That is his 7th win, I think, of the season. Is it his 7th win? No, 6th win, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 6th win of the season. By far the most wins of any driver, and he is by far the favourite to win the championship. He is now 45 points clear of nearest rival Lewis Hamilton, who is now 2nd in the championship. George Russell, his teammate, 50 points behind. Antonelli is the one they've got to stop if anyone else is to win the championship. And he's still only 19 years old. But there you go, guys. That is your Belgian Grand Prix of 2026. Let me just do the driver of the day vote. And your driver of the day options will be Kimi Antonelli. Charles Leclerc, I'll put in there. I thought he had a pretty good race. I'll put Bortoletto in there. I thought he did well today, despite getting a bit lucky with a virtual safety car. And Franco Colapinto definitely deserves to be in there for scoring Alpine's sole point. Alpine and Racing Bulls are now level on points. 61 points apiece. For me, though, driver of the day is Kimi Antonelli. Thoroughly deserved to win. Like I said, dominated the weekend. Got pole with a brilliant lap. And he would have led a lot more of this race if it wasn't for an unfortunate virtual safety car period. So there you go. Let me know who you think driver of the day is. But that was a good race. It wasn't quite the fight for the win I was hoping for, but we still got a fight for the win. Good fighting for the podium. Plenty of drama. Plenty of good racing. It's a good race. I'd give that probably a 7 out of 10. A couple overtakes definitely were too easy, but that's still something I think that will be improved upon over time as Verstappen finishes 3rd, and we're just seeing him in the what do you call it? He's in the Parc Ferme area, just getting his cap on. He won't be happy, Max, but that was the best he could have done. As Lewis Hamilton has parked his car up, and he's having a chat with some of his mechanics, engineers. Hamilton, if it wasn't for the penalty, he would have finished 3rd, but he clearly deserved the penalty and arguably deserved more of a penalty because he took Russell out of the race. Not deliberately, of course, but it was a clear driver error and clearly caused a collision. Astro says, Bortoletto gets my vote today, 8th with Hulkenberg 13th points in the Audi. Respect, absolutely. He's, I still think, even though he's not got many points on the board, I still think he's having a really good season. He's still doing well in the head-to-head to Hulkenberg. And he's scored all of Audi's points. Audi have got 10 points, and Bortoletto has 10 points. And Bortoletto now is not that far away from, say, 11th, 12th in the championship. So he's having a good season. Audi just need to make a faster car. Let's all laugh at McLaren. They gave Lando a 7-second pit stop, costing him finishing 4th. I don't think it cost him finishing 4th. He would have finished 6th, but maybe 5th, but he wouldn't have finished in 4th. No way. But yeah, I enjoyed that. That was a good race. And of course, next weekend is the Hungarian Grand Prix. A reminder, I won't be doing a race watch along for Hungary, but I will be here for qualifying. Cannot wait for qualifying. Qualifying is going to be so close next week. We've got, I wouldn't say Red Bull. I think they're going to struggle there, but Ferrari, Mercedes, and McLaren are all going to be so close to each other and really close on, on lap time in that fight for pole. It's going to come down to hundredths, if not thousandths of a second. So make sure to check out qualifying and be here on the channel for qualifying, because that's definitely not one to miss. Qualifying in Hungary, normally really exciting. And coming out this weekend, Mercedes, I think, are still in pretty good shape for that race, given the car they've got still. The form Antonelli's in as well. Ferrari, though, even though they didn't win today, their race pace was still good. They were the second best team in that race. So I think Ferrari, if they don't get pole in Hungary, they've definitely got a car that can win in Hungary. And then McLaren, bit unlucky today. If that virtual safety car doesn't happen, I think Lando could have ended up on the podium. I thought he was really doing well until that virtual safety car. So on a different day, Lando, I think, has a much better result. But watch out for McLaren as well. They're going to be right in there. And to be honest, at this point, I think it's too close to call as to who's going to win the Hungarian Grand Prix. But it will be Mercedes, Ferrari, or McLaren. Red Bull, I think, will be the slowest of the four. They just don't have a good car for that type of circuit. They're going to be very reliant on Verstappen that weekend. Serigara saying, remove Bottas from the down grid, please and thank you. I mean, yeah, he needs to be replaced, but I don't think it's he needs to be replaced so suddenly. Looney Classic says yes, Kimi can absolutely become better at Max in a couple of years' time. I think it's gonna need to take longer than that for that to happen. I do think, though, if they do become teammates, which I really hope they will next season, then if Kimi beats him then Kimi at that point has got to be the best driver in Formula 1. And maybe you'd say right now he is. I still think it's Verstappen, but Antonelli is stocks rising all the time. Looney Classic saying, I think Lewis put himself on the back foot crashing in practice 3. Yeah, that didn't help. But he still could have had a good result today if it wasn't for the crash. So, you know, a shame. But we've had, what, 26 votes? So I think I'll finish up the poll. Because, yeah, I need to open my window because it's very hot in here. Driver of the day, 26 votes. 53% of the votes gone to Kimi Antonelli, 31% for Leclerc, 12% for Bortoletto, and 4% for Franco Colapinto. Yeah, thank you guys so much for coming along to this race watch along, and for both watch alongs if you have been here all weekend on the channel. Been great to have you. If you're new to the channel and you subscribed, welcome to the channel. Good to have you. But yeah, that's it for this weekend. Tomorrow, I will upload my podcast reviewing the Belgian Grand Prix. And then remember, next weekend, I will be live for qualifying at 1:30 PM UK time, as usual, 90 minutes before qualifying. And then the race, I won't be doing a watch along, but on Monday, the day after, I will be obviously doing the podcast reviewing the Hungarian Grand Prix. And then it's a summer break where I do have a few videos planned for you guys. So yeah, that's it. for this weekend. Thank you all for coming along. Before you go, make sure to smash the like button. If you haven't, make sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel as well for more content like this. And in general, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Of course, it is World Cup final day. For anyone who's going to watch, happy World Cup final day. And until my podcast tomorrow, reviewing the Belgian Grand Prix, and until next week's Hungarian Grand Prix, make sure to be here at 1:30 p.m. UK time for qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix of 2026. Until then, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.